My entitled friend broke an expensive turntable in my house and is now refusing to pay for it, claiming that I'm putting materialistic things above our friendship. And right now I'm really pissed off as she's starting to turn our friends against me, saying that I'm the one at fault in this situation, despite the fact that she broke something in my house. And at this point, I feel like I'm at my wit's end because right now I just don't know what else to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so this happened last weekend and I'm still mad about it. I had my friend, who I will call Sarah, over for dinner, and she was being her usual clumsy self, and it's here that she knocked over my vintage turntable that I've been collecting records for. The thing completely shattered, the tone arms snapped clean off, and the platter cracked right down the middle. This wasn't some cheap Amazon special either. I paid $800 for it 2 years ago, and it was in perfect condition. When it happened, she just stood there and was like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry." But she didn't even offer to pay or anything. I was trying to stay calm, so I just said, "Okay, we'll figure this out later." The next day, I texted her the receipt, and I asked if she could cover it since her insurance might help. Well, when I did this, she completely flipped it on me, saying that it was an accident and that I shouldn't have had something so expensive right where people could bump into it. And it's like, what? I'm supposed to childproof my entire apartment for grown adults? She kept saying that she doesn't have that kind of money right now, which I completely get, but she literally posted pictures from some expensive brunch place the same day. Then she had the nerve to suggest that I should have told her beforehand that stuff in my house was fragile. I've known this girl for 6 years, and she's acting like I set some kind of trap for her. The worst part is that she's making me feel like the bad guy for even bringing it up. I ended up telling her that if she can't take responsibility for breaking other people's stuff, then maybe she shouldn't come over anymore. She then called me materialistic and said our friendship means more than some stupid record player. And now half of our friend group is saying that I'm being harsh and that apparently accidents happen. But like, if you break something expensive, you pay for it, right? That's just basic adulting. I'm not asking her to pay it all at once. Even like $50 a month would show that she cares. My roommate thinks that I handled it wrong and I should have been more understanding about her financial situation. But honestly, I'm tired of people thinking that being broke gives you a free pass to be irresponsible. She should have at least offered something instead of just getting defensive and trying to make it my fault. The turntable is completely ruined and I can't afford to replace it anytime soon. So am I overreacting here, or is she being a terrible friend? Part of me wonders if I should have just eaten the cost to keep the peace, but that just doesn't seem fair either. I worked extra shifts to buy that thing, and now it's sitting in pieces in my closet. She won't even acknowledge that she should help pay for it and keeps changing the subject whenever I bring it up. I'm really questioning this whole friendship at this point because her reaction tells me everything about what kind of person she really is. What should I do? Okay, first and foremost, this is some crazy entitlement in my opinion. Your friend is a complete jerk and literally doesn't care about you. First of all, if I was in someone's house and I broke something expensive like that, I would be going out of my way to pay them back. I don't care what it takes, like bro, I'm gonna make sure they get their property back, especially if I damage something that's like $800 and really hard to find. But the fact that your friend tried to be like, "Oh wow, you're so materialistic. Is our friendship more than some stupid record player?" And it's like, dude, I would love to flip that right back at her and be like, yeah, is it worth a record player? Pay me back. You literally broke it because you're being irresponsible. Because that's all that's going on right now. It's crazy that she wants to sit there and be like, wow, you should have told me that there were fragile things. But the original poster's right. Like, what are you, a toddler? Like, what's going on right now? You're a grown adult. You should know better. Like, what's happening? So no, of course you're not the jerk. This is absolutely not your problem. Your friend is a piece of garbage for not being willing to help pay for this, or at least come to some kind of agreement between the two of you. And the fact that she's trying to be like, oh wow, the original poster's the one at fault, not me. Like, that is a seriously delusional attitude, and honestly, I also would be questioning this friendship, because as far as I'm concerned, it's over and she is absolutely at fault. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to cancel my weekend plans, even though my sister suddenly decided that she wants my help moving, saying that if I don't help out, then suddenly I'm betraying the family. And at this point, I'm exhausted and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. Over 3 months ago, I planned a weekend trip with 2 of my best friends. We booked a lakeside cabin through Airbnb with direct lake access and boats. The reservation and our activities are already paid for and cannot be refunded. I've been looking forward to this trip for months, especially because I rarely do anything for myself myself, and I'm a big fan of fishing. Yesterday, my younger sister, who's 27, called and told me that she's moving out of her apartment and into a new place across town. She said that she needs help lifting furniture, loading boxes, and transporting pretty much everything. She knew months ago that her lease was ending, but waited until this week to pack up. She now says that she cannot move this weekend without me, and that my plans are not more important than family. For context, I help my sister constantly. I babysit her kids when she works late at night. I loan her money when she falls behind on bills. I drive her to appointments when her crappy Chrysler won't start. I even helped her move twice before, both times with very little notice. I love her, and I do not mind supporting her when I can, but this trip was the first thing I planned strictly for myself in a very long time. Well, I told her that I'm still going to the lake as planned tomorrow, and she blew up at me. She called me selfish and said I'm proving I only care about myself. She then texted our mother, who phoned me, and said that I should cancel and help my sister because family comes first. So I reminded my mother that my sister has had months to prepare and could have hired movers, recruited friends, or organized things earlier. And now both my sister and mother are furious with me, and I feel incredibly guilty, even though this was not a last-minute trip. My friends think that I should still go and say that I have enabled my sister for far too long, but I feel torn because I do not want to be the villain in the family. So am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, no, this is so unreasonable. You've literally already booked your entire vacation plans and they're trying to be like, oh, you need to cancel that right now. Like, dude, what are you talking about? No, that is not gonna happen. It's crazy to me that anyone's gonna be like, wow, how dare you go on vacation instead of helping out your sister at the last second. Like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm gonna do. I help her out constantly. Are you kidding me right now? And it's so funny, the very people who are being like, you're being selfish, are also the same people who would like never step up and help your sister out, but still expect you to do something about it. Like, dude, this is so backwards. So no, you're not the jerk, and I think your mom and your sister are being incredibly silly. Am I the jerk for not selling my sister something that I had already sold online? Because she tried to claim that she had showed interest in it, despite the fact that she literally said nothing about it. And now I'm honestly really frustrated, and I don't know if I'm in the wrong. Here's what's going on. So a while back, I bought a sort of rare gaming console online after finding it for a good price and using a coupon. It's something I've wanted for years, so I finally hopped on it. I ended up finding it in a like-new condition elsewhere for around the same price. So I ended up with two of them. My sister knew that I had both and planned on selling one and keeping the other one to try and get some money back. Occasionally, when she was reminding me of having it, she would casually say, I might want it, or, oh, I like it. It looks good. You can sell it to me instead. And I would tell her, well, if you're willing to buy it from me, it can be yours. But it never went further than that. I did linger on this for months, but I finally decided to post a listing online a few days ago. I even told her that I did this that day and that I expected it to sell quickly due to its rarity. Still, she didn't show much emotion about this, except a casual joke for me to take it down and give it to her instead. But she jokes a lot with me though. She didn't try to tell me anything about wanting it or wanting to pay for it. 2 days go by and I check the listing and I see it's getting more and more likes, and again, I tell her this, but still not much response. Finally, last night I tell her I got an offer. I also say that I'm firm on its price as I'm trying to get back what I paid for it, and that I was going to tell the guy that who was buying it. Then we talk more about the game and I show it to her, and she looks at it and turns it on. She then finds my listing online and likes it and begins talking to me about maybe buying it in real life and not listing it to avoid any fees. As we were talking, the guy from earlier buys it for what I asked for, and then suddenly she feels remorse, saying that all this time she wanted it from me, but wasn't sure if I was going to really sell it or not. When I told her that I mentioned my listing online all week, she said she didn't think it would really sell so quickly and thought she could still have a shot at it if she got her money together. Now, she wants me to cancel the sale with the guy because apparently it's something she would do for me. I told her that it's not fair to the buyer and that I should honor the sale, and that she honestly showed me so much interest too late. But now she feels like I'm doing her dirty and that I should have known that she had some interest in it from the beginning. Right now I'm conflicted and I'm a bit confused, as I want to honor the sale even if the timing is bad, but I don't want her to be mad at me for shipping it out today. What should I do? Okay, if your sister really wanted it, she would have been like, hey, let me buy it right now from you before you list it online. Like, if she really wanted it, she would have been like, wait, don't list it online, I'll buy it. And then it could have been taken care of from there. But for me, it kind of seems like she wanted you to give it to her for free instead of like selling it to her. And this is one of those things where it's like, oh man, if you had just spoken up earlier, this could have been taken care of like a long time ago. And it's really ridiculous that she's trying to be like, wait, you sold it? What do you mean? I wanted to buy it. Meanwhile, she showed no interest in actually like initiating that. So no, you're not the jerk. You're your sister is an idiot because she had so many chances to buy it and she still decided to do nothing. Am I the jerk for refusing to lend my cousin my car after she kept lying about small things over the years? Because after she lied to my family about me, I now feel completely betrayed and very shocked. And at this point, I'm really not sure what to do to try and fix this. Here's how it all went down. Okay, for starters, I grew up fairly close to my cousin, who's only a year younger than me. We were always thrown together at family gatherings, and because we live near each other, our parents like to act like we were automatically best friends. As adults, the relationship has become strange. She has a habit of telling small lies that seem harmless at first, but eventually they pile up until I feel like I never know what version of the truth she's giving me. Last month, she asked to borrow my car for a few days because hers had started making a loud scraping noise. I didn't feel comfortable lending it to her, especially because I've seen how she treats her own car and because she has a history of leaving out important details when she wants something. I tried to keep it gentle and I told her I would be happy to help her look up a mechanic or give her a ride if she needed it, but I wasn't comfortable handing over my car. She acted like she understood, but later that day, my aunt called me. She was upset and told me my cousin had said I refused to help her even though she was stranded at home and needed to get to work. But that simply wasn't true at all. I had offered her rides. When I explained that, my aunt went silent for a moment and simply said that she would talk to her daughter. A few hours later, my cousin messaged me saying that she didn't think it was a big deal to exaggerate the situation and that I shouldn't make everything so dramatic. She then told me that family should help each other out unconditionally and that I made her look bad. And now the whole thing has turned into a huge family argument. My parents think that I should have just given her the car for a couple of days because she's family, and my friends all say that if someone lies regularly, it's understandable not to trust them with something expensive and essential. I'm stuck wondering if I drew the line too hard or if this was finally the moment I stopped enabling her little lies. So am I the jerk here? Because at this point, I'm honestly really pissed off. Okay, this is so annoying. I hate people who exaggerate and make things bigger than they actually are because that is crazy in my opinion. Seriously, this is so frustrating. Like, why not just tell the truth or at least accept the truth that's given to you? For me, I would never lend this cousin my car ever. Like, I would never give that to him and I'd be like, sorry, I'm not giving it out. Because that's an expensive loan, dude. And chances are she's probably gonna mishandle it and it's gonna be your problem. So the second anyone tries to throw me under the bus for something I refuse to give them, that's the second I will never help them out again. Like, seriously, I put up a wall, I say sorry, but enough is enough, I'm not helping you, and that is that. So yeah, this is some stupid behavior, your cousin's an idiot, and anybody who's taking her side, in my opinion, is also an idiot. Because no, you don't just help out family unconditionally, especially if they're gonna lie about you in the process. An entitled boomer demands that me and my nephew shovel his driveway for a ridiculously low price. But despite telling him no repeatedly over and over again, he still refuses to take the message. So I decided to confront him to finally shut him down. Here's what I did. Okay, so we live in an area where we get blasted by snow a few times each winter and it accumulates. Most people shovel or hire someone to shovel after every big snow. My mom has gotten older, so me or my young adult nephew will swing by her place, which is 15 minutes each way by the way, just to plow our driveway and walkways. Now, of course I do it because she's my mom. I don't ask her for any money, and frankly, it would be better for me to hire it done instead, but it is a chance to see mom, so this is not about money. Having said that, her boomer neighbor has tried to hire me and my nephew to do his driveway as well. His driveway is much longer, so it would not be a quick and easy job, and frankly, the neighbor has never really been nice, and the only time I see or hear from him is when he wants something, so I have better things to do than clear his driveway for him, and I've told him no various ways, including that I'm not in the snow removal business and I don't want to be. The neighbor also asked my nephew and my nephew also told him no each and every time. But apparently no doesn't mean no to this neighbor. It just means ask again later like some kind of broken magic 8-ball. On the occasion in question, we had gotten some snow and both my nephew and I were at my mom's place and had our driveway done very quickly. Well, the neighbor came out and flagged my nephew down, asking if he would clear his driveway and that he would even pay him $20 to do it. But my nephew scoffed at him and told him no and then just walked away. My neighbor then decided that this was offensive and turned to me and say, "No one wants to work anymore." But I told him he works really hard. That's why you keep badgering him about working for you. Don't even pretend it's about him. The neighbor says I'm not badgering him, but I told him yes you are. He has made clear that he doesn't want to work for you, and he's even told you no several times, and I'm telling you to leave him alone. The neighbor then says it's just disrespectful, but I just decided to end it by telling him good night, and I went inside with my nephew and my mom, because arguing with this guy is honestly a massive waste of time. Oh yeah, this guy is completely full of crap. He's trying to sit there and be like, nobody wants to work anymore. And then he offers you guys $20 to do his long driveway. Like, what is going on right now? That's not nearly enough, and plus, I would never want to do any work for him. Chances are he's probably just going to complain the entire time, and I guarantee you, this guy's going to be ungrateful the entire time. So yeah, you guys absolutely made the right choice by shutting this guy down and going away from him. And hopefully in the future, this guy gets the message and doesn't try that crap ever again. Today, I need to figure out how I can move out to my grandmother's house without causing a full family meltdown, because I know for a fact that my parents are going to lose their minds when they find out that I want to move out. And at this point, I seriously am at such a loss that I just don't know how to navigate this. Here's what's going on, because this is really tricky. For starters, I'm 19 years old and I'm living at home with my parents. I work full time, I pay my own car note, I pay for my insurance, my phone, my own food, as well as literally everything else. I help around the house, I take care of the dog, and I stay out of trouble. No substances, no drama, no partying, or nothing. I literally work full time and that's it. My parents are very controlling and the situation has been building for years. It's a mix of double standards, random anger, shifting rules, and constant pressure. I get nitpicked for small things, blamed for stuff that isn't my fault, and constantly told that I need to do more. For example, my dad lies about small stuff and then yells at me for things he himself does. He changes rules with no warning, he'll restrict stuff that I pay for myself, and my mom switches between depending on me and backing him up. Any tiny thing becomes a lecture or a family meeting, and I feel like I'm walking on eggshells every single day. I also don't feel safe having honest conversations, because he either storms off or blows up. They scheduled another meeting, and my dad told me there would be big changes that I'd have to adjust to, and based on past patterns, that means either losing my room or another set of extreme rules, and I am not willing to live under that ever again. Because of how stressed I've been, I've asked my grandmother and my aunt if I could stay with them for a few months while I save for my own place. Now, they didn't say no, but they said they don't want to cause a rift in the family and want to make sure my parents know it's my decision and not them trying to take me. My dad will not be okay with me moving out, even though I'm an adult. He will take it as me betraying him, and he may show up angry. That's why my grandmother's house is also hesitant. This is literally family politics, and I just can't believe this. This really just makes me so angry right now. So here's my problem. I want to move out quietly and without a war breaking out, but my parents aren't the type to handle any kind of news calmly. If I tell them ahead of time, there will be yelling. If I move out first and tell them afterwards, they might show up at my grandmother's house and cause more drama. So I'm stuck between either staying in a stressful house that's affecting my mental health or moving out and risking a giant blow up. So seriously, how do I handle the conversation with my parents? Whether I tell them before or after moving? How do I avoid my dad storming over to my grandmother's house? Like, what kind of boundaries can I set as an adult without escalating things? What should I do? Okay, if I was in your shoes, I would just accept the fact that no matter what I do, my parents are gonna be pissed off. If I give them notice that I'm moving out, then they're just gonna be pissed off. And if I move out in the middle of the night, they're also still gonna be furious with me. Like, your parents are gonna be in a bad mood pretty much no matter what you do. And it sucks, and it really is uncomfortable, but it's just something that you have to accept. I also wonder if, like, maybe you can move into someone else's house outside of your family, just so you can have some kind of peace and, like, distance in your life. Like, maybe moving in with your grandmother is not the play here. Maybe that's like the obvious thing that's just going to cause problems, and that's probably why they're feeling a little hesitant. So hopefully this works out for you, and hopefully you're able to find some kind of living arrangement, because what you described, by the way, sounds like a nightmare, and I don't blame you for a second for wanting to move out. My manager refuses to give me a raise, all because I'm not hitting all the check marks that they're demanding through a mystery shopper program that honestly is really stupid. So I decided to maliciously comply, resulting in them losing hundreds of dollars every single night. Here's what happened. Years ago, when I worked at a major chain convenience store, we had mystery shoppers hired by corporate that would come in and secretly evaluate the store. And worst of all, employees' pay depended on these evaluations. I worked an overnight shift from 10 o'clock at night until 6 o'clock in the morning all alone. And that's an important detail, because the mystery shopper evaluation list included asinine things like hot, fresh coffee and stuff like that. Not having them would cause you to be docked points and thus not get a raise. Now, if you've ever worked this kind of job, you know that it is just silly during those hours of the night when there are literally no customers there. The idea is to balance availability against waste. But after 2 rounds of my day coworkers getting raises, and I didn't because per store policy I didn't make extra coffee or roller grill items during the night, I I decided to speak to my boss about it. I said to them, I understand that this is corporate policy, and I also understand that our store policy is to not do this at night. What can I do as a night shift worker to get better evaluations? And I said something along those lines, not adversarial or anything like that. Well, my boss told me, just make sure you get full points on every line. That is your only job, and handed me another evaluation list to study. So I thought to myself, okay, fine. Now's my chance to maliciously comply. For the next couple of weeks, I made sure to make fresh coffee, both decaf and regular roast, right at 10 o'clock p.m. when I got to work. And I fully stocked the roller grill, hot dogs, jalapeno sausage dogs, taquitos, etc. And then at midnight, when exactly none of this stuff had actually sold, I closed the doors and I went to stock the coolers. This took around an hour, and it's just something that's done on the night shift. So at like 1 o'clock in the morning, I would then toss all the roller grill items, and I would pour the coffee right down the drain. Then right after that, I would make 2 fresh pots of coffee and restock the grill and just reopen the doors. Then at 4 o'clock in the morning, I would repeat the process and dump all of it, and then turn right back around and make it fresh again, because it had been there for like 2 hours. Eventually, the boss called me in and told me that as long as I get 10s on all the other items, I would be getting my raise along with everyone else from then on. But he then said to me, but please, just stop wasting $100 a night on stuff that doesn't sell. So I said to him, oh, no problem, boss, I can absolutely do that. Which is really funny, and it's kind of too bad that he didn't notice the issue until it finally cost him his bottom line and actually had an effect on him. Which, if you consider the crap I went through for this, is kind of ironic. Okay, for me, I love that so much because holy crap, if these people are really gonna dock you points over so many stupid things and then be like, sorry, you're not getting your raise yet. Like, that is crazy and that is really stupid. So good for you for doing exactly what you did, because if I was in your shoes, I would probably do the same thing. My entitled boss demands that I no longer be allowed to get any overtime hours, despite the fact that I use my time wisely and my involvement is crucial for our company staying afloat. So I decided to get revenge by maliciously complying, resulting in our business nearly falling apart at the seams, with me proving to everybody, including our corporate representatives, that my boss is the reason that all of this fell apart. And I've honestly never felt better about getting back at somebody in my life. Here's what happened. So I work as a manager in a call center. I am nowhere near the phones and generally do not interact with customers. Rather, I am a knowledge repository for my staff and handle communication between our team and the client company which we provide support for. We are a technical support team, not a sales or order support, and the devices which we support are very complex consumer electronics. Most of our support time goes to professional installers, and we rarely speak to customers firsthand. In short, my job is to know our policies like the back of my hand and to know the products that we support better than anyone, except for maybe the designers that engineered them. A secondary part of my job is to coordinate our online chat team, which is generally pretty hands-off other than right as the shift ends, when I generally jump in to monitor any active chats and make sure they close up quickly. I don't want to keep my guys here any longer than necessary. They like it better, and it cuts down on overtime hours for the entire line of business by a lot. This means I generally rack up about 15 to 20 minutes of overtime a day, and some days it can be as little as 0, and others as much as an hour. My direct boss knows about all of this and is generally all for it. One day, however, the guy who was in charge of all of the support teams sent out a memo saying that management should never be getting overtime. I brought this up with my boss as this would seriously impact my team, and they ended up arranging a meeting with the big boss. Well, the big boss proceeds to tell my boss that no, I cannot rack up any overtime hours. So I think to myself, fine, I'm gonna get out at a reasonable time every day, and I have absolutely zero issue with this. So the next Monday, I log out right when my shift ends, and it turns out 3 of my guys were there for an extra hour with last-minute chats. Tuesday rolls around, and it's nearly the same story. This continues all through the week, and we are bleeding overtime hours for the support staff, with most of my team getting nearly an hour of overtime per day. This goes on for a pay period when the big boss comes back and tells us that we were told to reduce our overtime hours and that we had somehow racked up even more than we had before. Well, my boss backed me up and told the big boss that no, we were told to reduce management overtime hours, and that I had indeed not racked up any overtime. My big boss asked why my overtime hours had increased, and I mentioned that I stayed to make sure that my team had the support that they needed so that they could get out as early as possible. The big boss says, well, that makes sense. Keep doing that, but add any overtime to your Friday lunch so that you don't rack up any overtime. overtime. I explained that I can do this, but I will still probably be getting a bit of overtime on Fridays, since the end of the shift is obviously after lunch. And again, this is totally fine by me. Long lunches are really nice. This works well for a few weeks, and I am making sure I zero out my overtime. But I knew it was only a matter of time before they regretted doing any of this. We were approaching the busy season and getting more and more long chats and longer calls. I made sure to get the big boss to email me and to send a message to me and my boss this instruction directly. Sure enough, a few weeks later, on Monday, I'm there for a whopping hour and 30 minutes trying to get one guy out the door. Tuesday, it's the same story for about an hour, and then Wednesday, it's about an hour and 15 minutes. And to top it all off, I was there for 2 whole hours on Thursday. It was a terrible week for the last minute chats, and when I added everything up, it made my lunch for Friday about 5 hours and 45 minutes, not to mention an hour for my normal lunchtime. I normally work 4 hours, 1 hour for lunch, and then another 4 hours. So that Friday, I came in and explained the situation to my boss, and he was cool with me only working for 2 hours and 15 minutes the entire day. And this is because I was doing exactly what the big boss had told me to do. So an hour into my shift, I go on my 6 hour and 45 minute lunch break. While I'm enjoying most of my day siesta, the entire line of business is burning down. Chat is so busy that we have people waiting 30 minutes to speak to somebody. Calls are so busy that we have 15 calls waiting to be seen. On days like this, I normally jump in the queues, as I do not need to document every case like our tier 1s have to, and I'm also very good at my job. I can usually knock out a 15 to 20 minute call for a tier 1 in about 5 minutes or less. I can easily handle 4 to 5 chats at one time, and this seriously takes a massive load off of that team. Now, I alone could not save this shift. There's no possible way. We were due for a hiring class, and we were working on onboarding our new tier 1s at the time. But man, does it look bad to the client when one of your key players is absent for all but 2 hours and 15 minutes on one of the busiest days we've ever had. I eventually get back, I settle down at my desk, which is right as the rush is clearing up. And at that point, the damage is already done, and we were pretty manageable for the rest of the day. Right at the end of my shift, I look and notice that there is no one on a chat or a queue, so I immediately log out and I thank my team for working hard that day. Fast forward to Monday, and I get to meet with the client, the big boss, and my boss for our weekly meeting. The client was furious about how Friday went, how one of our best assets was on a super long lunch break, and the big boss puts me on the spot and asks me why that was. But my response was completely rehearsed. I said the following: well, according to the company policy established by my boss, I am not allowed to accrue any overtime hours. Any hours over 8 worked within the work week must be made up during my lunch break on Fridays. Now, at this point, my big boss actually began denying it, but thankfully my boss stepped in and said, wait a second, I got an email about this. He then pulls up the email that the big boss sent and shares it on screen in the meeting. And at this point, the client is furious, and the corporate representative begins ripping the big boss a new one on the phone. After ripping into the big boss, the corporate representative speaks to me, telling me to accrue as many hours as needed to make sure my job is done, and that if my company wants to retain this line of business, the big boss is not to interfere with my generally very successful management without consulting them and myself. Ever since then, the big boss has continued to try to interfere and change how I run my line. However, every time so far, this corporate representative has had my back. They are extremely happy with my work, and they know that I do a great job. And they even pushed through a large raise for me when my big boss was blocking my boss's attempt to get me more money. And it honestly felt fantastic to get back at this stupid boss. Yeah, that guy is out of his mind if he's gonna try and block you from getting overtime hours. For starters, it seems like he's trying to micromanage and penny pinch you specifically, even though it doesn't sound like he knows at all what he's doing. That's really obnoxious, and it's so annoying to see someone act like that. But also, on top of that, you clearly were getting your job done in a timely manner. For him to sit there and be like, oh, you can't get any overtime hours, and if you do, you're gonna make it up on Friday. That's really annoying in and of itself, but not nearly as annoying as this guy trying to deny it ever happening. And this, ladies and gentlemen, in my opinion, is exactly why you need everything in writing. It is so important to recap what you talk about in meetings in an email or in some kind of written format, so then you can hold your boss accountable for what they say. This way, they can't try to screw you over and take you out of your job, or even try to lie like the big boss did, just so they can avoid any kind of heat from the higher ups. I can't stand management that acts like that, and there's just no good excuse for that in the slightest. So seriously, I'm so glad you came out on top of this situation because your big boss sounded like a massive jerk. And I know if I had to deal with that on a daily basis, I would definitely be looking for another job. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for supposedly tricking my brother into selling me his half of our childhood home, only to then demolish it and make a lot of money off of it? Because right now he is very upset and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my mom and dad divorced when I was very young. My brother loved the fact that our mom had no rules for him, so he went with her. I abided by the custody agreement because I had no choice in the matter. My mom loves the both of us, but she dotes on my brother like he farts perfume. My dad kept the house, but he had to buy my mom out. It was an old house built in 1953. It had old wiring and was really less than suitable for modern living. What it did have though was a huge yard that was great growing up. My dad passed away during COVID-19, and he left everything equally between me and my brother. Now I wanted the house, and I told my brother that we should tear it down and put it in infill housing like that neighborhood is zoned for, but he just wanted money. So I bought out his half of the house at the market value, and it was sold as a teardown. He took the money and went on a vacation, and even after that, he still has money left over. Then I had the house demolished and I built a fourplex. Each unit has 3 bedrooms, 2.5 bathrooms, a small yard, and a garage. I kept one unit for myself, and I rent each of the other units for $2,000 a month. My mortgage is $1,800 a month for the entire thing, so basically I live for free and I bank $4,000 a month. Now at this point, my brother is angry with me, all because I didn't give him a unit to live in, since he reminds me that it was his home as well at one point. And you know what? I even offered to sell him one at a cost, but he said no. So right now I'm just lost. I offered him a partnership, I paid a fair price, I even offered to sell him a unit. I did everything to try and be fair, but he thinks that I tricked him because I apparently get free money every single month. Our mom said that she would be cutting me out of her will and giving everything to my brother if I didn't give him a unit or the income from one of them. Now I agreed that was fair and said that I would no longer feel the need to contribute to her upkeep or retirement when that time came. I am now being bombarded by the two of them, but I took the risk. I took on the debt and now the money is mine. So am I the jerk in this scenario? What should I do? No, you are definitely not the jerk. You bought him out of his portion of the house fair and square. You even tried to get him to join you in doing this in the first place, but he just wanted money and he wanted to run away and do his own thing. And it's so funny that he only has sour grapes after you've put all this hard work in. That is completely obnoxious and so unfair of all the risk and the hard work you put into this place. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, and if your brother is seriously that upset about this, then that honestly falls on his shoulders and not yours. Am I the jerk for not letting someone switch seats with me mid-flight, all because they wanted to get away from a crying baby? Because as a result of me saying no, they freaked out and called me all kinds of horrible names, and now I'm starting to question my decision. Here's what happened. So my wife and I were flying back from Dublin to Washington, D.C. We were assigned the middle and window seats in a row, and the aisle passenger no-showed, so we ended up having the entire row to ourselves. Before leaving the gate, I moved to the aisle seat and my wife stayed at the window. Now, nothing eventful happened for the first 4.5 hours of the flight. The flight attendants were amazing and even gave us extra drinks to compensate for the guy that was missing in the middle. Well, randomly, the passenger from the aisle seat across from me comes over with their friend who was sitting a few rows back and announces to me that her friend would now be taking the middle seat just so she can get away from a crying baby further back. And mind you, she did not ask us. She told us that this was happening, and there were about 3 hours of flight time remaining. I asked the woman whether the flight attendants are on board with this or not, and she said yes. But since these deals are usually brokered by the flight attendant, I decided to call one over. So the flight attendant said that the agreement was that they could take an available aisle seat, but they could not disrupt anyone's seating arrangements. The woman then starts complaining about how I was assigned the middle, but then moved to the aisle before takeoff, so I shouldn't even have the aisle seat. I had been sitting there for almost 5 hours, and we had already distributed our items all over the row. The woman and her friend disappeared to talk to another flight attendant for about 5 minutes, and the woman across the aisle then comes back to her seat and proceeds to yell at me, saying that her friend would not be sitting there, not because she's not allowed to, but because I was so incredibly rude, and that we were complete jerks. But you know what? I just kept my eyes on the show that I was watching. The only thing I did this entire time was ask to talk to a flight attendant. I did not say anything else to this woman, though I really would have liked to. So honestly, am I the jerk for not volunteering the middle seat mid-flight? Because that lady was very angry and I'm kind of questioning my decision. No, you are definitely not the jerk. First and foremost, you absolutely need to check with the flight attendant first, and this lady and her friend just straight up lied to you and said, oh yeah, she's on board with it, don't worry about it. Like, that's insane and that's completely uncalled for. But even better, just look at the way she reacted when she was told no. This lady freaked out and acted like the whole world was ending, as if you had committed some great atrocity. But you literally didn't do a single thing. All you did was call over a flight attendant and try to mitigate this situation because this lady was clearly lying. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, and those people's behavior and attitude was completely uncalled for. Am I the jerk for walking out of the house and staying away for the entire day after my parents brought up once again that my older sister did not want to be adopted by them? Because after hearing this so many times growing up, I'm honestly sick of it and I now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my parents are hosting extended family for a couple of weeks. It's my maternal and paternal grandparents, as well as my aunt and uncle on my paternal side. It was going okay until last weekend when my parents brought up a topic of conversation that I am so tired of hearing and being pulled into. So let me explain the non-adoption and why it bugs me. My dad had a kid before he met my mom, this being my half-sister. My dad had primary custody of my half-sister, and her mom was in and out of her life. My parents met when my half-sister was 2 years old and got married when she was 4. Her mom was in and out of prison and was on and off substances and alcohol, and she was really disruptive to my half-sister's life and to my parents. She refused to stay away, but refused to be a good mom as well. When I was 2 or 3 years old, her mom offered to walk away for good, but only if they removed any chance that she could be sued for child support. My mom was willing to adopt my half-sister. The 3 adults wanted this to happen, but because of my half-sister's age, her wishes held a lot of weight, and she didn't want my mom to adopt me, and so as a result, it never happened. So as a result, her mom kept the back and forth for a few more years before giving up the relationship with my half-sister completely. My parents were so upset that my half-sister rejected having a stable and loving mom with my mom for a woman who even she admitted was so mean to her and didn't take good care of her at all. But from what I witnessed, my half-sister never really liked my mom to begin with. It's a really big deal to my parents, and I have grown up hearing about it way more than I need to. They told me details I didn't need to know, and this is when I was too young to be hearing them. They would literally suck the fun out of things just even bringing it up, and I just know that they hold it against my half-sister. And they also think that my other sisters and I do as well, but the lack of closeness has nothing to do with her not getting adopted, and everything to do with our half-sister not wanting to be close with us. I asked my parents to stop bringing it up around us a few times, but they just ignored me. But then they said they got it and that they would listen. But last weekend, my parents brought it up while the family was over, and I was so not wanting to hear about it again. So I got up in the middle of breakfast and I left the house, and I didn't come back all day. And you know what? My parents were so mad at me for that. I told them that I couldn't listen to them talk about it again, and that they just simply couldn't help themselves, but I wasn't going to turn it into a fight to try and stop them. They told me walking out without permission is bad enough, especially since I'm only 17 years old, but when we have family here, they said it's disrespectful, and they told me that I'm old enough to know and do better. Now, this has been a sore point the entire week. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. It seems like your parents bring this up pretty much all the time, and I think after like the first 10 times, it would really drive me crazy as well. And it sounds like it just completely deflates the room entirely, and it ruins all of the atmosphere that probably was there before they started talking. So you know what? If I was in your shoes, I probably would have walked out as well, or at least like gone up to my room and been like, yeah, I'm not gonna hear this another time, because that really is obnoxious, and I don't blame you for reacting in the way that you did. Am I the jerk for telling my wife that her family would need to get a hotel the next time they visit us simply because of how obnoxious their kids are? Here's what happened. My wife and I have been married for 7 years, and we have a 5-year-old son. My wife has 4 siblings with 2 brothers and 2 sisters. Her brothers live far away, and she isn't very close to them, and both of her sisters live within 2 hours of us, and the 3 of them are very close. Both of her sisters also have 2 kids. Her youngest sister, who we will call Jennifer, has a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. Jennifer, her husband, and their kids came to visit us this past weekend for Memorial Day, and we have 3 bedrooms in our house: our master, our son's room, and a smaller guest room. My wife decided on her own that we should let Jennifer and her family have our bedroom. Apparently, Jennifer's kids aren't the best sleepers at home, home, and if they are in an unfamiliar place, it's even worse. So my wife offered Jennifer our room so all of them could be in one room and my wife and I would sleep in the guest room. Well, it turns out that by bad sleepers, Jennifer means that her kids wake up multiple times a night and then wake up for good at 5 o'clock in the morning every single day. I don't know about anyone else, but the last thing I want to do on a weekend is be woken up by a screaming baby at 5 in the morning 3 days in a row. It wasn't just the crying baby, but the fact that Jennifer and her husband would also be running around getting whatever the baby needed. The commotion was so bad that it woke our son up, who then woke up my wife and myself. And this was every single day at 5 in the morning. I spent the entire weekend tired and very cranky. To make things worse, Jennifer and her husband would take naps together whenever one of their kids was napping, which left my wife and I watch their non-napping child all by ourselves. I complained to my wife about being tired, and she told me that her sister and brother-in-law needed the rest more than we do, because this is their life every day, so we should help them at least get a little bit of a break. But by the time Jennifer and her family left on Monday, all I wanted to do was sleep, which I did immediately after they left. Well, my wife got upset with me for napping because our son was also tired and cranky and was fighting her on everything, and she even woke me up so that she could take a break. Well, I later told her that next time her sister wants to come and visit, they need to get a hotel because their kids' sleeping habits are clearly disruptive to our entire family. She told me that she isn't going to tell her sister to fork out hundreds of dollars for a hotel room when we have the space for them in our house. She also said that Jennifer's kids will become better sleepers as they get older. So I told her that every decision that she is making prioritizes her sister over me and our son. And when I said that, she got defensive and told me that I'm being a jerk. Now, maybe I'm far enough removed from the baby stage that I've just completely blocked it out, but I do not remember ever being so disruptive to anyone when we were guests in their house. They are supposed to come and visit us again for the 4th of July, and I'm already completely dreading it. So am I the jerk for saying what I said about my wife's sister? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Honestly, I can kind of see both sides of this, but it seems like your wife is looking through rose-tinted glasses. She is not looking at the facts, and she is just completely ignoring how intrusive these people really were in your home. And I'm personally right there with the original poster. If someone was in my house and they were waking up and screaming at 5 in the morning every single day, I would be super exhausted, and I really would not want to put up with that. So in my opinion, I don't think that's an unreasonable request, because it really does not sound like you guys have enough room to accommodate them. Because from what you've described, it sounds like they're very disruptive. And if I was in your shoes, I definitely would not want to deal with that a second time. An entitled drunken passenger steals my exit row seat on an airplane that I was riding on, claiming that this seat was his and that nobody was ever going to move him. Things got so bad that the police ended up being called just to escort this crazy man off the plane. And I've honestly never met anybody this entitled in my life. Here's what happened. So I was flying from Fort Lauderdale to Jacksonville about 20 years ago. It was a small regional airline, basically a puddle jumper plane. There were single seats down one side and double seats down the other. This was also back before airlines charged you for the audacity of desiring to breathe while in their tin cans. And since I was booking pretty far ahead of time, I was able to select a seat on the left side where the single seats were on the airplane. Now, being 6'4" and having flown numerous times, I know that the exit row is the primo spot unless you're paying for first class or business class. And I also know that arriving early and asking politely at check-in more often than not gets you that sweet extra legroom as long as it's available. So I show up a couple of hours early. I go to the check-in counter, I ask the nice lady if there's any chance I could get an exit row, and sure enough, being polite won again. And doubly so, because I not only got the exit row, but I also got to stay on the same side of the plane, which means no one would be bumping elbows with me, which is definitely a jackpot. Now, I make my way down to the gate, and soon enough, it's time to board our flight. There's the pre-boarding passengers first, then the rest of us cattle. I make my way down to my prize, only to find that someone is sitting in it. Now, I'm annoyed, but not overly so. I mean, it could just be an honest mistake, right? So I go up to him and I say, "Sir, I'm sorry, but I think you might be in my seat." I then show the guy my boarding pass. Well, he looks at me and says, "Screw you." And as he said that, I realized, oh wow, yeah, he's definitely drunk. And I could tell that by the way he was slurring his words. So not only was he belligerent, but drunk and belligerent. Well, I know the rules. And if you're drunk enough to slur your speech, then that means no exit row for you. I catch the attention of a flight attendant, and I talk to her quietly about the situation and my concern about Mr. Jerk over here in the exit row. Never mind the fact that it's my seat in the exit row. She approaches the gentleman, but barely gets a word out before this guy screams at her to get lost. And at this point, I'm laughing to myself because I know exactly what's coming next. Sure enough, she heads off to the front of the plane, and Mr. Jerk is smiling smugly, thinking that he's won this battle. Meanwhile, I'm grinning like the Cheshire Cat because I know exactly what's gonna happen next. Sure enough, here comes the captain with the flight attendant in row. Now this gentleman is big. He's got at least 2 inches on me height-wise, and I suspect if he ever gets bored with being a pilot, he could play defensive back. Clearly, the kind of person who gets out pent-up energy by picking up and putting down very heavy things repeatedly. The captain goes up and says, "Sir, what's the issue?" Now, Mr. Jerk has figured out that the man standing in front of him is obviously some kind of authority figure, but he doesn't quite seem to be able to pin down what kind of authority figure. So, in a slightly less drunk corner of his mind, he knows the phrase is uniform and he knows big. So, instead of a repeat of what the flight attendant and myself got, the captain gets some drunken warbling about it being his seat, and that I was mean or something like that because I wanted to take it away from him, and that the lady over there, as he points to the flight attendant, was mean as well. The captain, meanwhile, takes one look at the flight attendant and then back at Mr. Jerk. He says to him, "Sir, have you been drinking?" And this guy just says, "Oh yeah, I've had 2 beers. Now, as an aside, I really want to see those mystical 2 beers sometime, because I imagine that this guy drank 2 kegs of beers, but I digress. The captain tries to be polite. "Sir, could I please see your boarding pass?" The captain knows that this flight is full, so it's doubtful that he can get this guy into any kind of decent seat, like a bulkhead seat, or even just try to bribe him. But he really just wants to know where this guy is actually supposed to be. The captain says, "Sir, your seat is back there." And this is as he points to an empty seat in the very back of the plane, with his seat being just forward of the galley and the bathroom. So obviously not a primo seat. He says to the captain, "No, it's not. This is my seat." So with a sigh, the captain turns to me and says, "Sir, can I please see your boarding pass?" He goes back to Mr. Jerk and says, "Sir, this seat belongs to the gentleman standing right here. Please get your belongings and move to your assigned seat." Now at this point, the slightly less drunk part of his brain lost hold of its grip on his mouth, and the 2 beers that are clearly sitting in this guy's stomach started to bellow out. He screams at the captain and says, "No, this is my seat. Screw you." Now, I'll be honest, the captain was not expecting this. And then I see a vein throbbing on the captain's forehead that easily could have doubled as a garden hose. He pointed at me and said, "Sir, please come with me." He spun on his heels and walked towards the front of the plane. At this point, he just wants to separate Mr. Jerk from those that he deems as mean. Once we are finally out of his earshot, he looks at the flight attendant and asks her to call the airport police to escort the gentleman off the aircraft. I glance back and Mr. Jerk is smiling smugly again, thinking that somehow he's won. Well, that smile lasted about 7 more minutes, all the way up until the local police arrived to inform Mr. Jerk that he can either walk off the plane under his own power, or he can be cuffed and assisted off the plane. Now, I will credit the cops. They had much more patience than I had. This guy then went on for about 5 minutes in a drunken rage, screaming about how everyone was being so mean to him. And at that point, eventually they lost their patience too. The silver bracelets came out and off they went, with our drunk friend now protesting loudly that the cops were being mean as well. And I've honestly never seen anybody act that insane in my life. Yeah, I think I would be super annoyed if somebody stole my seat, but also was so blazingly drunk and obnoxious about it in the process. That would be really annoying to deal with, and I can't imagine having that kind of patience to not try and like tell them off and be like, "Hey, you need to move." So honestly, good for the original poster for handling this with style and with class, because that entitled jerk absolutely had it coming. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. A group of entitled Karens make wild assumptions about our wine selling business, claiming that we're just breaking down all the boxes instead of selling them, despite none of that actually being true. Here's what happened. A while back, I worked at a wine store. Everything in the store was at least 80 points for those of you who understand what that means. So we understandably get some things in rather nice packaging. The cigars are the fanciest packaging in my opinion, but honestly, to someone who sells the stuff, it's just a box. Now, boxes inspire ideas, but not all of them are good. Just imagine what kinds of people would show up to some place with the pretense of having lots of boxes. Those people are the kind of people that show up to wine stores, except used wine boxes have replay value for people buying wine. So there's a built-in demand that really prevents waste. Only completely useless cardboard gets crushed, and only dirty boxes get thrown out. So it's not a goldmine of boxes. So one day the phone rings, and it's an old lady with a sweet demeanor. She asks asked us if we had any wooden wine crates available. I put her on hold and I asked my coworker if we had any, and she told me that we get them here once in a while, but when one is available, it goes quickly, usually to the first person who asks for it. We have to actually sell enough wine that comes in a wooden crate before the crate can be up for grabs. So the lady thanks me and says goodbye. At that point, I go about my day. It's not that unusual of a question, but it's the first time that I had actually gotten an answer. Previous time, I just said that I didn't know, but now I do, so that's really good. So then the phone rings again, and it's another old lady. She tells me that she heard we have a wooden crate wine boxes, and that they will be available after a sale is done, and she wanted to be sure that she was the first person to ask for one, almost acting as if there was some kind of waiting list, or even some kind of big sale event that they were just being used for. So I explained that no, there is no word on when a single crate would be available. It is completely random. So all the bottles that are stored in this crate, they need to be sold first. And I explained this particular set of facts a few times. I answered that lady's questions and she actually seemed to get the whole thing. With the matter being settled, it was definitely explained that there were no crates available because of some sale. Well, after about an hour of unremarkable wine store business, the phone rings again. I swear, it somehow rang harder than normal, even though phones don't actually ring anymore. This one was a frantic old lady. She heard that a sale had ended and we had removed all the wine crates, so they were unavailable to customers. She said to me, "People want those crates." But I just repeated all the information I told the last two callers. I then tried to figure out what all the fuss was about. We talked enough and then I resolved all the concerns. While on the phone with this same caller, I explained more detail about how one of these boxes would even become available, and I really thought that I was off the hook at this point. But then the boss lady Karen calls. This lady sounds like the type of person who grabs her pearls and screams, "Oh my stars." I mean, she definitely needs an organist to follow her around. The best that I could gather was that she heard that we were redoing our warehouse and that we aren't holding wooden crates for anyone. Supposedly, we were crushing the crates to make sure they all fit in the dumpster. Then we went on to ramble about how beautiful those wooden crates are and how people reuse them, and she begged me to ask the wine clerk for 6 of them. Well, at that point, I put her on hold and I laughed my head off, and I decided to ask a random clerk if it could be done. The guy looked scared for his job, so I disregarded his reluctant yes because he told me that the manager would be mad and the crates, certainly full of delicate, expensive products, wouldn't even stack well. I even looked at the room where the wooden crate wines are stored, and they're not even from the same places in the world. They're built from completely different woods. They only stack with the same brand. Well, the lady calmed down when she learned that no, we didn't have a machine that crushes wooden crates. I have a background in sales, but I regret not trying to actually sell all the wine in question. Fast forward, and 3 days later, a college girl called me, and when she began asking me questions about wine crates, as if she was trying to make sense of something, it turns out that she saw a wine crate bookcase on Instagram and wanted to build one herself. Fortunately, she apologized, and I was just glad that I found it funny, and that her grandmother's actual sewing circle is the reason that all this drama popped off in the first place. Because trust me, these conversations were incredibly exhausting. Wow, I can only imagine getting the same phone call like that over and over again for what, several days? Or even all at the same time on the same day. I know whenever I worked customer service and people would just assume things about the job and just make up stories in their head, it really made my job not only harder, but also very frustrating. So I think the original poster handled this really well, and they kept their cool despite the fact that these people were just making stuff up. Because I know if I was in their shoes, I would definitely have been very frustrated from the beginning. My boyfriend is literally into every conspiracy theory that you could possibly think of, as he is constantly studying all the hidden things about the world despite never having any evidence to back up any of his claims. And now, after a recent conversation, my boyfriend has called me a government puppet, and that I need to open my mind to other points of views. And at this point, I'm wondering if I'm making a mistake by dating this guy, or if this is something that I can overlook and still have a good life with him. Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 29-year-old female, and my boyfriend is 45 years old. And we had a few things to iron out in our relationship of 6 months. We get on really well, but my God, every conspiracy going on, he is absolutely into it. I don't mind with a few of them because who am I to judge? I don't honestly have all the answers. I kind of like it in a way sometimes because I find it funny and interesting that he thinks about these things. But it is currently everything. Weather control, rigged elections, pyramids, COVID, Stonehenge, aliens in Mesopotamia, the earth being flat, and the list goes on and on. One of his friends had a go at me once for not doing my own research around the Great Reset, which I kind of just laughed off because I think it's ridiculous ridiculous. And if there really was a great reset, I'm unlikely to live through it, so I don't really care. My boyfriend went to Egypt just before we started dating and literally argued with the tour guides about the origins of the pyramids, believing that he was indoctrinated. See, when it comes to ancient structures, he claims that they don't want us to know about them, and that they hide all of this from us. According to him, archaeologists are just brainwashed, and when things are found that don't fit the version of history we have or the time period, they discredit it and say that it's not real. Like how apparently a bit of metal that was found somewhere, which showed proof of advanced machinery way back in the day. When I googled this, the article I found had the plausible answer that actually it fell off a bit of machinery in present time that was digging up the ancient site. There's so much of, oh, they control this and they control that. And I'm like, who is they? Does this non-binary person exist in the world? Like, who is it that you're talking about? It doesn't tend to bother us day to day, but tonight we've had quite a big argument about conspiracies. He actually thinks that I'm a government puppet and that it will stunt my growth by never thinking outside the box. For context, I'm a medical professional that very much deals with what's happening now and what I can do right in that second to help my patients. And he is in a manual field where that sort of stuff just doesn't come into play. The COVID topic for me is off limits because I worked throughout the pandemic and he respects that. So is this a deal breaker? This is the biggest red flag and it feels so ridiculous and comical, but I worry if this is a sign of things to come. What should I do? In my opinion, this is a massive red flag and a giant deal breaker for me. If my significant other went up to me and said, "Oh, you're just a government puppet. You need to open your mind," and then try to spout off all this garbage that you literally just mentioned, from arguing about the pyramids to weather control, I would literally dump that person right away. There's no way in the world I would ever want to be with someone like that. And it's just amazing to me that you're willing to put up with that for so long. Like, hey, good for you. If you really like them, I guess go for it. But if I was in your shoes, there is no way on earth I would ever want to date someone like that, because they literally sound unhinged. And that is definitely not the kind of person that I want in my life. Am I the jerk for shaving my head without telling my family? Because right now, my parents and my brothers are furious with me. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 19-year-old female and I just finished my freshman year of college. My grandmother, who's 82 years old, is unfortunately in the later stages of cancer and is not expected to live much longer. We were very close when I was a child, much of which was because I'm her only granddaughter, which is something that she had always wished to have. One of the ways we bonded was through my hair. I had it very long, all the way down my back, and she loved how it looked like hers did when she was a kid. I was repeatedly told my entire life, especially by my grandmother, to never cut it as it was beautiful. Now, I came out as a lesbian at 16 years old and started to take on more of a masculine appearance, and in turn, my self-confidence became a lot stronger, but it also definitely alienated me from my family. They're not homophobic by any means, but they're definitely uncomfortable with the idea of me being gay, especially because I'm the only girl. Through those last few years of high school, despite wearing masculine clothes and getting an undercut in my hair, I still kept my super long hair. My parents didn't love this new look, but never tried to stop me either. Well, going to college far away from where I grew up has allowed me to embrace the look I'm going for a little bit more, and the obvious step for me was to cut my hair. It was something that I wanted to do for years, and so in April, right after I returned to campus from spring break, I had a friend of mine shave all of my hair off, knowing that I wouldn't have to face the consequences with my family for another month or so when I came back home from college. And you know what? I love my shaved head. I feel so much more like myself without all the hair weighing me down, and I even donated all of my hair. I was extremely nervous for my family to see me without my hair. I was too nervous to tell my parents, so it came as a shock to them when my dad picked me up at the airport and saw me. His immediate concern was that this trip home could very well be the last time I see my grandmother, and it would absolutely break her heart to see me without my hair. When I got home, my mom was absolutely livid. She said that it was incredibly selfish for me to do this, especially when I knew I was going to see my grandmother, who absolutely loved my hair, and that it was unfair to have her last image of her only granddaughter being, in her words, an ugly tomboy hairdo. At this point, I feel absolutely awful, because while I did this for me and I feel great about the haircut, it breaks my heart to think about my grandmother and what I did to her by doing this. And this is because the first thing she always used to do when she saw me was tussle my hair and compliment it. My parents are still very mad at me, and so are my brothers, because my grandmother is our matriarch, and we are all trying to do everything we can to make her happy and comfortable at the end of her life. They are all saying that I should have at least waited for her to pass away before I cut cut my own hair. So am I the jerk for not considering this when I chose to shave my head? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, and anyone who's making a big deal out of this, in my opinion, is completely out of line. This is your body, this is your hair, and you could do whatever you want with it. If you want to cut it, let it grow out, or dye it, that is all literally up to you. No one stakes any kind of claim over how you look, or over the kind of way you want to live your life. So honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would tell them to get lost. If your grandmother really only loved you because of your hair, and only wanted you around because you had long, beautiful hair like she had when she was a kid, and this really is that big of a deal breaker, then in my opinion, she never actually loved you. If she did love you, she'll love you regardless of how you look. And that should be the same with any other genuine family member who actually cares about you. And sure, I can understand that they're shocked that you shaved your head and just didn't say anything, but I know for a fact that if one of my sisters did that, I would still love them for the person that they are. Wow, I can't believe you didn't think about anyone else before you did something with your body. Like, that's just insane, and there's literally no reason to act like that. So no, you are definitely not the jerk, and I think your family is acting insane for treating you in the way that they are. My former job treats me like garbage after I quit to try and find something else, causing me to burst into tears out of pure humiliation. Here's what happened. Okay, so let me start off by saying that this was my first job. I was a food runner and a busser, but I wasn't a server. I got hired at a local place where the owner had a reputation for being a massive jerk, but I really wanted to see the good. Over the summer, the other two bussers constantly called off, leaving me at work alone even on major holidays. And as a result, I got so stressed out from working alone, closing the store, and sometimes even opening by myself. By the end of the summer, I quit and gave my 2 weeks notice, and my boss asked me to meet with her to understand why I was leaving. And in this meeting, she promised to cross-train me if I returned in the spring. Well, spring came along and I recommended a friend for the job. I had been asking since April to be scheduled for the first week of May, and they said yes. My friend got hired and ended up with more hours than me, even though I had been there longer. Well, I complained and they called me into another meeting. My manager told me that to get more hours, you have to prove yourself to us. They brought up my attempt to quit last year and dodged my questions about getting the same hours as last summer, not counting the times that I worked alone. It was then that I realized I should have stuck with my decision to quit last year. So that night, I texted them after my shift and I just quit. And not even 2 weeks later, I got a similar job at a distillery. Yesterday, during my break, I visited my old job to say hi to my old coworkers. My former boss cornered me, likely because she knew I struggle with standing up to authority. She noticed where I was working and asked what I was doing. I told her I was still food running and bussing, and she said to me, "So you quit to do the same thing there after we planned on moving you to a new position?" But I explained why I quit again, just like I had to my manager before. She then told me that I should have thought twice about my decision and that I need to work on my communication and decision-making skills. Now, normally I'd put on a poker face, but it actually caught me off guard. I am not the type to leave without saying goodbye, but I felt so humiliated. And when I left, I burst into tears on my way back to my job. It sounds pathetic, but I felt hopeless and humiliated. At that moment, I wished that I had never worked there. I wouldn't wish my experience on my worst enemy, and I'm praying that this new place treats me better and that I don't get treated like that ever again. Yeah, if I was in your shoes, I would have told that lady off right then and there. Because here's the thing, and I really mean this, no one should ever have to take that kind of treatment ever. I don't care who it is. Putting up with that kind of passive-aggressive garbage, in my opinion, is only going to cause you mental stress that you do not need. So hopefully in the future, you have a chance to defend yourself and stand up for your good name. Because that lady was completely out of line, and you definitely did not deserve that in the slightest. An entitled cheating scumbag begs me not to expose his secret after he gets caught trying to cheat on his wife with my mom by lying and saying that he was single. But after the way he treated my mom and tricked her, I decided to get some revenge. And as a result, I exposed him for the cheating scumbag that he is and effectively ruined his marriage. Here's what happened. Okay, this event took place before the pandemic. I had worked at this job for at least 6 years before I left its toxic environment. Yet I got along with just about all of my coworkers. I also, won't lie, live with my mom, which I only say this because of a couple of things. My stepdad passed away from lung cancer in 2018, and he passed away 7 months after he was diagnosed. And in 2019, she and I got the house that we currently live in. Now, when this event took place, I worked nights at my job at the time. I would normally be home around 6 a.m. due to not driving at the time, and it was too cold for me to use my e-bike, so I would get rides from coworkers or just bike itself depending on the weather. As a side note, this is also Canada, so it can get really cold, and my asthma makes it hard for me to bike in cold weather. This was my day off, so I was hoping to just relax and just get some sleep, even though that wasn't meant to happen, as I was woken up by some sound above me. I live in the basement at my house, as it is a finished basement and my bedroom is under the living room of the house, but I just chalked it up to my mom watching something on TV. So I get out of the bed to go grab my mom's bedding that was in the dryer. As I was getting up the stairs and opened the door, that was when I saw the dog. Now, here's another thing I should point out. The dog, whose name is Buddy, was my stepdad's dog, and he would call Buddy his furry son. This dog kept my mom sane when my stepdad passed away and was always comforted by this dog and everything that came into her life. Now, it was very strange for me to see this dog in the kitchen instead of the living room or my mom's room. He was practically glued to my mom's side. So I asked him, "What are you doing out here, Buddy?" Buddy was just wagging his tail at me. So I go toward the living room door and I saw that the door was shut. Again, that confuses me, so I just mentally shrug and I open the door. I start to tell my mom that I'm bringing up her bedding, but I stopped when I see a very familiar face on the couch with my mom. My mom looks at me in surprise and tries to tell me who this is, but I say to her, "I know who he is, Mom." And when I said that, it wasn't clicking in for me what was going on, because again, I just woke up from doing a closing shift, and I really did not get a lot of sleep. She says to me, "How do you know him?" At this point, this guy's eyes are wide since I walked into the living room, but I just say, "Well, I work with his wife." At this point, Mom is sitting in a state of confusion and kind of leans back a little while looking at the man. She then asks the guy, "This is your ex-wife, right?" And she seemed a little skeptical. Before he could even answer, I said, "No, it's his current wife." And then I said the coworker's name. Now, my mom, of course, is in shock. And again, I don't clue in as to what was going on. They're just talking as I walk further into the living room with her bedding and I set it on a chair. I pet Buddy and I make sure he goes outside to do his thing, and then I go back to my living room in the basement. Well, the guy was kicked out a while later, though beforehand, he had begged my mom to tell me not to tell his wife about this because she is very possessive. So for months, I kept my mouth shut. Though that wasn't the only thing she told me. She had told me that the reason why Buddy was kept out of the living room was because the moment that that guy walked into the house, Buddy growled at him. And for the sake of the story, we'll call him Jay. Jay is not his real name. And trust me, Buddy loves everybody. So for him to growl at someone was a big red flag. That alone shocked me when my mom told me this. Well, that, on top of the fact that it turns out that Jay also knew my mom's cousin and her cousin's husband. They went to high school together, and we only found that out when my mom mentioned that was part of their conversation before I came up the stairs. When Mom also told me that he was there because they met on Tinder and that this was a date, oh how I wish that I knew sooner. I would have kicked his butt out the door myself, because if there's one thing I hated, it will always be cheaters. My mom had been cheated on before, and she hates them, so she was thankful that I came up when I did. Now, there's more to this story, because as I said, I had kept my mouth shut for months on not telling my coworker. Let's call her Leslie. As we worked, I heard her saying that she was being kicked out of her townhouse. Now, I was confused and I asked what happened. Leslie told some of us that Jay tried to overdose, and she had managed to get him help in time to save him. So she pretty much saved his life, and he tries to repay her by trying to get her kicked out of the house. So when I heard that, I'm just saying to myself, okay, screw this, no repercussions. Then I told her everything that happened. How he met my mom, to him being at my house, to when I came up. I mean, I literally told her everything. When I was done, she just stared at me, a mix of shock and anger. It turns out Jay cheated on her throughout their entire marriage, even though they have 5 kids, her oldest being in her 20s or 30s. Also, he was the possessive one, not Leslie. Whenever they separated, he was always allowed to see other people, but not her, and he definitely made sure of that. Once she had everything I told her, she had finally been pushed because of what I told her, that it all seemed that it was far worse than what he's done in the past, and their marriage was toxic from what I learned later on. Not just with destroying her property such as her phone, but he also hacked into her Facebook to make posts themselves. I don't know all the details, but what I do know is that there is now a restraining order against him. He even tried to tear her down by saying that no man would ever want her because she was used and old. Now, mind you, she isn't old. She's still young and has a lot of life left in her. Then he told her that she's too old to get a union job, but she proved him wrong on all accounts. She got herself a good man, got a good paying job now, and she even lost some weight. She's doing a fantastic job living her life right now. But there was one thing that I had asked her after I told her everything. I said to her, "Leslie, you said that I look like my mom, right?" She said to me, "Yes, you do." Now, for reference, I had posted pictures of me and my mom from my mom's Facebook page that came from my mom's 50th birthday, and Leslie had commented just how much my mom and I look alike. jerk, and I'm basically her clone to say the least. Her husband had met me many times in the past because he would sometimes bring Leslie coffee or bring her the debit card that she might have forgot. So I asked her, how is it that your husband didn't even notice how much I look like my mom when he met her? Well, what she said next honestly made me smile. She said straight up, well, because he's an idiot. And I laughed a little at that. Even their son, who also worked with us, told me that his dad isn't that smart or even that bright. So you can tell that it had to be true if his own now ex-wife and son tell me the same thing. When I had even told Leslie how he knew my mom's cousin and her husband, Leslie had told me that it was most likely that he would have tried to get lucky with her as well. Though that wasn't going to happen anyways, because my mom's cousin is still very much in love with her husband, and they are high school sweethearts. So this guy tried to get lucky only to then ruin his marriage, which is honestly just karma at its finest. But I still wish that I had said something sooner, I won't lie. That is my biggest regret with all of this, but I'm at least happy that she got out of that toxic marriage, and hopefully she never has to deal with him ever again. Yeah, that guy's a massive jerk. Literally, he tried to be like, oh, please don't tell my wife that I'm cheating on her. Like, that is so unbelievably ridiculous, and there's like no way I'm gonna listen to that. I also feel so bad for the original poster's mom, because here they thought they were getting with someone who was single and that they would have some kind of like solid relationship with. So to find out that way by the original poster, while the guy is literally on your couch, like that is devastating. So sure, I totally understand why you feel like you should have said something sooner, but at the end of the day, it did all work out, because in the end, the truth came out and exposed this guy for the jerk that he is. And that, in my opinion, is the best part about this entire story. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My manager denies my time off despite the fact that I'm pregnant, claiming that I still need to work at the office, even though I was afraid of going into labor at the office. And I'm honestly so sick of my boss, and I now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm a 31-year-old female, and I was 1 week away from my due date and was working full-time in a school administration position. At this time, I had the capability to work from home if needed, and when I accepted the position prior to my pregnancy, I was told by my boss, we'll call them Ronnie, that's not their real name, that it was very flexible as long as I got my hours in. I very rarely work from home, and typically only did so for an hour or two in the morning if it was needed later on in order to get to work before my OB/GYN appointments, as it was a long commute between work and home and the doctor's office. However, I was told by Ronnie after accepting the position to try and limit my work from home to 2 days a month, which is fine. At this point, I was well under, since I was only working an hour or two, maybe twice a month, and only once a month before that. Now, being so close to my due date, I was experiencing physical hardships that made working on site more and more difficult, such as dizzy spells, a pulled tendon in my foot, and severe back pain. I was also scared of potentially going into labor while at work, with it being so far away from the hospital that my doctor delivers at. To top it all off, my coworkers started asking more invasive questions about my pregnancy that made me very uncomfortable. So all in all, it was not a fun time. I explained all of this in an email to Ronnie and asked for her permission to almost exclusively work from home up until I go into labor. I said that I thought it would be a reasonable accommodation and I work really well from home. Ronnie responded a couple days later denying my request to work from home at all and said that I needed to be there since we would be starting some of our busiest work in a couple of months, which I would be gone for on maternity leave anyways, so I'm not sure why she brought it up. But I could talk to HR about leave options if I am truly having trouble working. By the way, it is illegal in my state to require an employee to take leave if there's a reasonable accommodation that can be made instead. So at this point, I decided to maliciously comply. I immediately went to HR and I did just that. We talked about options and found out that I could start my leave the very next day and still be paid the state mandatory leave pay for the extra time. I informed Ronnie that I would be out starting the next day as I needed to take care of myself. She then said to me, I understand you need to do what's best for you, but you need to understand that I need to do what's best for the team. So yeah, everything I normally manage basically went to crap in my absence, as the other people on my team weren't qualified to do the work and kept taking time off leading up to my due date instead of learning the basics while I was there to teach them. I mean, I left detailed procedure notes and workflow lists, but I later found out Ronnie had to pick up all the extra work and a lot of it never got done since she didn't have time. But regardless of what Ronnie thought, I'm so glad that I got my time off. Yeah, your boss was being super obnoxious. They weren't trying to do what's best for the team, they were just trying to do what was best for them. They knew they were not going to to train anybody to cover your responsibilities, so they knew that if you weren't working, they would have to pick up the slack, which is really frustrating for you because Ronnie could have easily cross-trained someone, and instead of going through with that, they decided to be lazy. And that, in my opinion, is not your fault in the slightest. Am I the jerk for not offering support to my dad's wife after she was the reason why my dad's original marriage fell apart? Because right now, she and everybody else is super upset with me, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my dad's wife found out 6 weeks ago that he's been cheating on her for years. They have 3 kids together, and she had no idea that he was cheating. His wife, who I'll call Anne for this post, was my dad's affair partner when he was married to my mom. I was 8 years old when we found out, and how that happened was that dad brought Anne over to pick up his stuff because he wanted to move in with her, and neither of them cared at all that I was there. A few weeks later, my mom passed away in a car accident, and I moved in with my dad and Anne. But I did not look at either of them in a positive light, and I still don't, and I'm now 17 years old. Anne and I butted heads a lot over the years, and she would talk about deserving more respect, and I told her that she was just the lady my dad cheated on my mom with, and she'd never be more than that in my eyes. I told her I didn't respect her as a person or as a supposed family member. Dad tried to get me to see him more positively at first, but when he realized I'd asked the big questions like why he did that to mom and me, he just stopped trying. I always assumed that he found a new mistress, but didn't have any proof until a year and a half ago when I saw him with another woman. I said nothing and I carried on waiting for the day that she found out. There were times I wanted to rub it in her face so bad, but I just didn't do it. And I will admit it, I was definitely laughing behind her back. When Anne found out, she kicked Dad out and I moved out with him. This was seen as a controversial choice because Anne wanted me to stay, and since everything went down, Anne has wanted me to visit her and wanted me to be with her and Dad's kids. As a side note, I'm not close to the kids, and I don't really care about having a relationship with them. Last week, Dad brought me by Anne's place to pick up more of his stuff and my stuff. Anne's family was there, and Anne and her family were scolding me for choosing Dad over Anne and saying Anne deserved my support, that they couldn't believe I'd pick my dad's side over hers. But you know what? I said that I picked neither side. But Anne means nothing to me, so I'm not gonna do anything for her. Anne's mom told me that Anne was a victim. I told them that she cheated with a married man and shouldn't be shocked that he'd do the same to her because she is nothing special. They kept engaging with me and my dad was taking his sweet time. Anne decided to talk to me one-on-one and asked me to stand by her and support her and help her give the kids a good life and show that we're still a family. And when she said that, I just laughed in her face. And when I did that, Anne started to cry. Her family asked her about it and she told them that I had laughed. They called me disgusting and cruel and said I should be ashamed of treating someone in my family that way. Anne's sister sent me a few DMs before I locked down my socials, but she said I should apologize to Anne and I should be there for her now to make up for my reaction to her. She had told me to be a better man and not some pathetic child who blames the women for stuff. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think Anne got exactly what she deserved, and I think your dad got exactly what he deserved. He literally cheated on his mom, and then Anne, who absolutely knew what was going on and who willingly tore your family apart, got a taste of her own medicine in a beautiful fashion. She realized that the original poster's dad is a scumbag through and through, and she had no business doing what she did in the first place. And you know what? If I went through that as a kid, and then I saw all of this go down with the additional baggage that Anne caused in your life, like literally, I think I would have laughed in her face as well. Because you know what? Anne got exactly what she deserved. And if she's unhappy with the result, then she should not have helped your dad cheat in the first place. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for slapping my father-in-law after he made some blatantly racist remarks about me? Because after our altercation, I have banned him from ever seeing our future child, and I'm still trying to figure out if I'm the jerk for making that decision. Here's what happened. So my cruel father-in-law insulted me and said some borderline racist things to me at my husband's birthday party. So let me explain the whole story. I'm a black female in my 20s, and I've been married to my husband who is Asian for about 4 years. We are very happy together, and I'm currently pregnant with our first child. So I've never really had a problem with any of my husband's family except for his father. His dad is a very old-fashioned man, so when his son came home with a black girl, he wasn't very happy. His mom and siblings welcomed me and were kind, and I was feeling pretty good about it until my father-in-law decided to say something. He said, "You know women like that are very untrustworthy, Henry." And for the sake of the story, we'll call my husband Henry. That's not his real name. I was stunned at his words, and so was everyone else. I didn't want to say anything to make him dislike me even more, so I just kept quiet. But Henry had no plans of doing that, as he asked what did he mean by that, and his father just shrugged his shoulders. After that, the dinner was relatively peaceful, so the night ended and we went home. The next day, we get a call from his father saying that something from their house was missing and was implying that I had something to do with it. He said, "Ever since that woman was over, your mother's necklace has gone missing." Well, my husband and I assured him that I didn't take anything, but he just didn't believe me. Later on, they found out that my husband's sister had borrowed it and forgot to give it back. So my husband made him apologize, and even though he did, I could tell that it wasn't sincere. After a while, we got engaged and we broke the news to his family. They were all happy for me, and my mother-in-law told me that she was so happy for us and couldn't think of a better woman for her son. When she said that, I teared up a little bit, and I thanked her for what she said, but my father-in-law was fuming. He yelled at me and my husband and said, "Are you out of your mind, Henry? She's terrible for you. Women like her are horrible." When he said that, I was appalled. How could he say something like that about me? My husband was absolutely furious. He said to him, "You are not going to talk to her like that, and you are going to apologize or you're not coming to our wedding." Now, after that, my father-in-law did apologize and started behaving, but only for a little bit. Fast forward and the wedding was perfect, and surprisingly, my father-in-law didn't cause any problems, but that was probably because I had two brothers who were absolute tanks, and they were ready to show him to the door if he tried anything. At the reception, we were asked if we were thinking about having kids at the time, and we just said that we don't know, but my father-in-law said, "Oh, I pray that you don't." I turned to him and I asked him, "Excuse me?" He said that he has seen how people like me are as mothers, and I told him that anyone can be a good mother no matter what their race is. And when I said that, he just rolled his eyes and stayed quiet the entire evening. After a couple of months, we soon found out that I was pregnant, and we were overjoyed, and we were so happy to share the news with everyone. But we decided to wait until my husband's birthday to make it even more special. So on the day of his birthday, his family came over and we had a good time. His father was giving me dirty looks and was commenting on my weight, but I just ignored him. During the end of his party, my husband gave a big speech about how thankful he was for his life and his family, and to break the news. He said, "I'm so thankful for the future that me and my wife are going to make with our child." When he said that, everyone burst into excited yells and laughs as they were congratulating us and everything. But I could see that my father-in-law was seething with rage. It was then that he broke loose and yelled something that honestly blew my mind. He screamed out, "You are too young to be having kids. This is going to hurt you so bad. It's always your race making these bad decisions. Honestly, you should have gotten with a girl of your race, Henry." Now, when he said this, I was so angry that I couldn't hold it back anymore. So I slapped him across the face, literally making everybody go silent. I glared at my father-in-law and I told him, "I am done with you. I am done with your bigoted opinion. Before you start judging my race, get to know me just a bit more, and you will never see my grandchild ever again." He stood there speechless for a second and then he just left. My mother-in-law then apologized for his actions, and I told her not to apologize because it wasn't her fault. After that, my husband has stopped talking to his father, and I haven't heard from my father-in-law ever since. And I'm honestly so happy, but I still need to know, am I the jerk for slapping my father-in-law after the awful things that he said about me? No, you are definitely not the jerk, because your father-in-law is straight up racist, not borderline racist like you were trying to say in the beginning. He is just straight up racist towards you, and it is so unfair. Like, think about it. Here you have your son who finally found the love of his life, and instead of being happy for him and welcoming this person into your life, you make racist assumptions about them based off of their skin color. Like, if someone acts like that, they are the lowest form of life on planet Earth. And there really is no good excuse for that too, by the way. Someone making these kind of racist remarks and saying these things over and over again, regardless of how much the original poster has tried to show that yes, they are a good person, like, that is so disturbing. And if I was in the original poster's shoes, I probably would have reacted the exact same way. And I also don't blame you for banning this guy from ever seeing your future kid, because if he's gonna be racist towards you, I can guarantee you he's gonna do the same thing to your kid. That would be awful for that child, and I would never allow that kind of hate in my kid's life. And also, how embarrassing for the mother-in-law as well as the other siblings who are like, yes, we do love you and we do accept you. Like, literally everybody else in the family is on board and they're so excited for you to be a part of the family, but the father-in-law is the only one who's hung up and acting like a complete moron. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. You did everything right, and I don't even blame you for slapping that guy in the face, because he definitely deserved it. He got away with saying that crap one too many times in my opinion, and it was about time that someone literally put him in his place, because hateful jerks like that should not be around around you or your future kids ever. And I think it was smart to ban him preemptively so that he doesn't try to say that hateful garbage to your future kid. An entitled customer screams and yells at me after they don't get exactly what they want. But after listening to that for long enough, I decided that enough is enough. So as a result, I yelled back, forcing my manager to step in so that I wouldn't lose my job. And I'm honestly so sick of customers like this, and I hope I never deal with these people ever again. Here's what happened. Okay, to put context around this story, I have to tell you a few things first. First of all, I've been working at my current company for almost a decade in different stores, and the warehouse I'm currently at in various positions. I took my current role as the lowest level of management so that I would not be customer facing anymore. Recently, we've started doing customer pickups out of my warehouse, and I'm the primary for that about 3 days a week. The rule for pickup is that the furniture has to be in factory packaging, not the wrapping that we use for delivery and storage. Also, I spent some time as an infantry team leader in Iraq about 15 years ago, and I've been working nothing but retail and warehouses ever since. Anyways, 2 customers come in to get their furniture, and they had been told earlier in the day that one piece didn't arrive. They start being loud and belligerent to my associate, so she comes to get me. They're a father in his 60s and a son in his 40s, both with very thick Eastern European accents. I try to calm things down and explain to them that they have to wait a day for the missing piece. I say that they're free to take what we have or take everything tomorrow. Well, they just start yelling at me, and you know what? I'm okay with this. When I tell them that they're free to contact their salesman about the issue, they begin swearing at me, telling me that it's my job to call them. They scream that the receipt label is for my company, stating that I need to be the one to call them. And they said that while also referring to the logo of the company on my shirt. And at this point, their verbal and physical communication have changed to being very aggressive. Now, my immediate and unthinking physical reaction is to shift my body weight and ready myself for a violent altercation. Now, I know that's not the right answer, I know. But decade-old reflexes are still reflexes. At this point, I lose my cool, and that old combat team leader voice comes out. I scream at them, "Gentlemen, you are more than welcome to take what is here or cancel your order." And when that comes out of my mouth, there's a stunned silence for about 3 seconds, and then they start right back up again. They start to say, "It's like this wherever we go. This other store and that other store, the post office, everywhere." Now, I don't tell them that maybe they're the problem, but instead, I do tell them that I cannot give them what they want because it's for another customer and I could lose my job. They then scream at me, "F that customer and F your job. That's not my problem. Give me what I want." I turn to the associate who originally dealt with them, and I asked her to get the closing manager. I'm now shaking from the adrenaline dump, but I'm trying to control it. My brain is doing threat assessment. My body is prepping for one of them to swing on me. And more importantly, my mouth is clamped shut so I don't say anything worse. My manager then comes over to talk to them as they yell about how bad we are, and then gives them the piece from our storage bin that was for another customer, which, you know what, that was his call and not mine. And then, just like magic, they're just so happy and helpful getting their furniture loaded. The father even hugs the manager and tries to shake my hand, but I'm just shaking with rage, saying a polite yes sir and no sir until they leave. I told the associate that she was free to take her lunch and that I would be dealing with the pickups until she was done. The manager commended me for not losing my mind on them, and then I took another 5 minutes after they left for the shakes to stop. And honestly, I haven't had an interaction like that since I left the army. It was jarring to just have my switch flip back on so fast. I am not proud of how I acted in any way. In fact, I'm disappointed in myself for slipping to their level. As a leader, I should be better than that. But with that being said, I hope those guys never come back. Okay, I love this story for more than one reason, because here we have a former military person who still felt that adrenaline jump after dealing with an awful customer. And if someone who's a veteran of war can feel that way and still feel like they have like an adrenaline jump and they're shaking and they're so mad, then that personally gives me solace that yes, those feelings are normal, especially when I worked a customer service job. Because if you've worked in those kind of jobs in the past, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. Some people can be so nasty and mean. They can treat you like absolute garbage and really ruin your day. And I know for me at least, I always thought to myself, man, I wish I was stronger. But this story has literally shown me that yeah, I could be stronger, but that doesn't mean I'm not gonna still get frustrated and really like shaking with anger. And the original poster in this story, who I'm willing to bet is much stronger than me mentally and physically, still had the same reaction that I've had at previous jobs. So hopefully this gives us all room to maybe cut ourselves some slack, especially if we ever deal with a rude customer and we find ourselves actually being shaken up by how awful they treated us. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My friend's entitled mother, makes my life a living nightmare, as she goes out of her way to say horrible things to me while we're at a pool party. Here's what happened. So this happened back in 2019 during the summer going into the 7th grade. On that day, I was invited to a pool party for my dad's friend's daughter returning from vacation in Mexico with her grandmother. We will call the daughter Erica for the sake of the story, and Erica is not her real name. And to be honest, Erica was just returning and wanted to go swimming. She just got a pool built in her backyard that looked identical to mine, just hers had a hot tub and ours didn't. And I expected to just go to Erica's mom's house because she lived next door. But it turns out the party wasn't at her house. So I assumed this meant we would be going to a friend's house in the neighborhood, but no. We all hopped into the car to head to the public pool. Now, I was cool with it. Thankfully, my mom gave me money for food just in case the pool party wasn't at somebody's house. Now, when we get to the pool, we are then expected by Erica's entitled mom to pay for our own bracelets. And you know what? I'm cool with it, because I do have my own money, but I was really confused. I assumed that since she invited us out, she was paying for all of us. I pay for my ticket, but then I turned to see my friends Esmeralda and Ashley. Those are not their real names. Esmeralda is the younger one of the sisters close to Erica's age, and the older sister Ashley is about my age. They both didn't bring any money because we thought we were swimming at somebody's house and not a public pool. Well, the entitled mom starts scolding at them, and when she paid for their bracelets, she was mumbling about how their mom now suddenly owes them. Another girl we will call Isabella, who is the youngest there, paid for herself because her family gave her money. Lastly, Erica's older cousin by 3 years was paid for only because he's family, and his mom was sending money to his aunt when he stayed there. So we finally get in, and I'm really hungry, and I decided that I'm going to eat first because I definitely skipped breakfast. And I got a lot of food because my mom gave me $20. From what I remember, I got a hot dog, some chips, some ice cream, and a slushie. Now, I understand how crazy it was that I ate that, but I had some issues at the time at home. To sum it up, because I don't feel like getting into it, basically, I ate whatever I wanted when I wasn't home because my family was way too controlling over food. I also had health issues that made me eat more, plus my medications. Anyways, Erica's entitled mom looked at me in disgust. She said to me, "You shouldn't eat all of that." And then she just wandered off. I knew what she was trying to say, but she remembered that my dad is friends with her fiance, and if she said what she was planning to say, it really can cause some issues. So she remembered saying something that she thought would work. She said to me, "Your mom wouldn't be okay with you eating all of that." I eventually got into the pool after eating, and I played in the water for a little bit. Every time I lightly splashed my friend Ashley, Erica and her mom would get mad and yell at me and Ashley because we were the oldest and we should act our age. And as a reminder, I was in the 6th grade at the time. We were also then expected to watch the little kids and follow them around. Now, me and Ashley didn't really want to do that, but we did so because it got embarrassing being stared at by everyone, especially when Erica's entitled mom would yell at us. Me and Ashley barely got to do what we wanted in the pool. And mind you, me and Ashley are in the 6th and 7th grade, and here we are watching a 4th, 3rd, and 2nd grader. And that's all instead of enjoying the pool itself. If me and Ashley knew we were going to be used as unpaid babysitters, we would have probably just stayed home and swam at my house. The kids got out of the pool because they got hungry, so we decided to follow, and I also wanted a popsicle because it hit 103 degrees at the time. And when we first got to the pool, it was about 95 degrees. Erica's mom side-eyed me and said, "You don't need any more food because you ate 4 hours ago." As a side note, we were at this pool for about 9 hours in total. I said, "I know, but I just want a popsicle." So eventually she allowed me to take my coin purse back and buy one. At first she said I have to give the other kids the rest of my money so they can eat as well. But I lied and said that popsicles were $2 and I only had 2 left. Well, Erica's mom then got upset and scolded me, saying that I shouldn't have gotten all that food and now the others won't get to eat, even though I brought my own money and so did Isabella. Erica's mom then pulled out $5 and told them that they needed to share, but when Isabella refused the money, saying that she had her own, Erica's mom asked how much she had, and she said she had about $30 or $40. But her mom said it's only for her and to return the rest to her mom. Well, when Erica's mom heard that, she took back her $5 and said that Isabella has to pay for all of the kids because she has the most money and that her mom would be fine with it. It's also important to know that Erica's mom never paid back Isabella's mom for the cost of the kids, which was about $30 in total. I got a popsicle and I bought the last Sour Patch Kids, which was for my older brother because recently he had been nice to me that week. So I bought it more or less as a treat. I enjoyed 2 popsicles and placed the candy in the bag secretly because I didn't want to let the other kids see the candy. Well, Erica's mom basically shamed everybody for what they got. I shared with Ashley some of my food because we were super close, and Erica's mom was mad that I didn't share with her daughter. Fast forward and we went swimming again afterwards, Hogwarts, and I came back a few hours later to Erica's mom complaining about random stuff and then wanting to leave. And as we were packing up our stuff, Ashley was complaining quietly about being hungry because she knew if she said it too loudly, she would be scolded by Erica's mom, especially when Isabella was tasked with paying for everybody's meal. So I gave her a few Sour Patch Kids because I accidentally opened the box when I grabbed my clothes. I put the box back quietly, and then I turned to Erica's mom, who was shaming me for buying candy and not sharing with the other kids. She then says to me, "You need to share with the other kids because you ate enough already." Well, when the other kids heard that I had candy, they all ran up begging for candy. When I tried to explain to Erica's mom that the candy is mainly for my brother, she accused me of lying and said that I had to share. So these stupid kids ran to my bag because they were excited for candy, and Erica's mom took the candy from my bag and shared it between all of the kids. After these kids got handfuls of candy, she gave me and Ashley 3 pieces each for being greedy. Now, the only thing that kept me looking forward to this day was going to pick up some ice cream at an ice cream shop close by. Well, as soon as we got close though, Erica's mom said that we don't deserve ice cream and said that we will get some at her house instead. Well, as soon as we get there, we got mini Otter Pops. Ashley declined because she wanted ice cream and decided to go home to get some from her house. Everyone else, and shockingly enough, including me, got their own Otter Pop, but only halfway because apparently we didn't deserve a full Otter Pot. I then went home very disappointed, but in the end, I didn't tell my parents everything because I was in fear that I might get in trouble for all of the food that I ate. Wow, this story is really sad for a few reasons, but for starters, it really sucks that your parents at the time were like basically controlling everything that you ate. Like, it really seems like they had some kind of chokehold on what you could and couldn't eat, and that's like really obnoxious in my opinion, and there's just no good excuse for it. But also, Erica's mom sounds like a basket case. She was combative with you and your friends pretty much from the start. Like, she was already up your case, but also refused to pay for anybody else's stuff, and seriously tried to make you and one of your friends pay for everything, even though she's an adult and she's got adult money. And you know what? Looking back in hindsight, that really is such a big deal for a kid because you just don't have that much expendable income. So seriously, I'm so sorry you dealt with that, and hopefully you've moved on from Erica and her entitled mom, because both of them do not sound like good people, and I just don't think those are good friends to be around in the first place. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not sending the PDF documents to my brother that he would need to go to university, despite the fact that I basically filled everything out for him, and he is now blatantly taking advantage of me? Because right now, my parents are very mad at me, and right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 19-year-old female, and I have a brother who's 20 years old, and we had a fight today, and it blew up really badly, and my parents are quite upset with me. We were recently admitted to the same university, and we had to fill out the financial aid form. I was accepted in mid-April and had to submit it that month, whereas my brother received his acceptance in mid-May and had to fill it out right then and there. Now, he is on a gap year, so we're both starting university together. The form is insanely long, and both of our numbers and everything needed to match up, so I saved my financial aid document for him, and I sent it to him when it was his turn. The document also had 2 short essays in it that I had written, and I understand that since our financial situation and history is the exact same, the essay was also basically going to be the same. But my brother quite literally just copy and pasted it to the document, despite me asking him not to do so. It was honestly quite upsetting, but I didn't make a fuss out of it. At the end of the form, there are roughly 25 documents that the university requires, such as blank statements and a lot of stuff like that. So I sent him all of it, as I had scanned them previously, and I kept them saved in my laptop. Even then, he was quite annoying, and kept calling me for the most basic questions that he can Google himself. Today, he received an email from the financial aid office asking for additional documents and some explanations. I sent him the screenshot of the explanation that I had given for the points that they asked for, and he once again decided that he's gonna copy it, which I again told him not to do it, and just try and rewrite it or reword it for himself at least. But instead, he used the same excuse, saying that it's the same either way. He then asked me for these 3 documents, and I did have them scanned and saved on my phone and my laptop, but I refused to send them to him. And I did this just out of sheer annoyance, honestly. Like, seriously, just do it yourself. I filled this entire form out, I scanned all of these documents, and in the middle of my board exams, which are my A-levels in science. And if I can do it, then why can't he just do it when he has nothing to do in his life except for play video games on his PS4? So I refused to send them for free, and instead jokingly placed a price on each document, and to be honest, I was completely serious about it. It was not at all an insane amount of money. It was honestly very, very cheap, and if he didn't want to do that, then he can instead spend 5 minutes and scan the documents himself. Now, instead, he snatched my phone that he knows the password to and decided to lock himself in a room and send himself the documents and upload them on the financial aid form. Now, to say I was absolutely fuming would be an understatement because I was livid. So I grabbed his PS4 and I held it up, telling him that I'm gonna throw it on the floor if he sends himself the documents and doesn't give back my phone. He eventually comes out and I put his PS4 down and I grab my phone. And I knew quite well that he has sent the documents already and there's literally nothing I can do. At this point, I was very, very upset. And I even said I was going to email the university about the fact that I wrote his personal statement and essays. That too in the midst of my midterm exams while he was on a gap year, and I had to write out my own personal statement and so many supplementary essays. I mean, I wrote a better personal statement for him than my own personal statement. Obviously, he knew I wouldn't do that because I'm not at that level of petty or mean, and it would also possibly ruin my own admission. To sum it all up, I'm pretty sure I did nothing wrong, but my parents are both on his side, that I could have just easily sent the documents to him and not caused the entire fuss, but I just don't agree with them. My point further being that he has absolutely no respect for me whatsoever, and I'm beginning to harbor a lot of resentment for him due to a multitude of things that he has done in the recent past. My parents are of the opinion that this is how siblings are and I need to move on. My father is quite upset with me for causing all this unnecessary drama in the house, and my mother actually started crying after seeing us fight like this. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because I honestly feel like I did nothing wrong. No, you are not the jerk, and honestly, I would be very upset with him as well. If that university connects the dots, it really could affect both of your admission and completely ruin everything that you're working for. And that sucks for you specifically, because it doesn't sound like your brother is taking anything seriously when it comes to university, and it really sounds like he's just riding off of your coattails when it comes to getting things done. And that is literally so obnoxious. Like, that is not going to serve him well in school at all, because it blatantly shows he has a massive lack of discipline with getting things done. So no, I don't think you're the jerk at all, and I think your parents and your brother are completely out of line for somehow pinning this on you. But at the end of the day, this is honestly like foreshadowing to how his college career is going to go, because I definitely don't think he has what it takes to be a good student, and it's only a matter of time before he drops out again. My friends mock me and make fun of me all night and make me feel like garbage almost on purpose. And I'm honestly still stunned by the way they treated me that I'm now unsure of what to do next. Here's what happened. I'm a 19-year-old female, and I was out with 3 of my girlfriends having a meal in one of those restaurants that give you the option to choose the lobster you would like to eat. Personally, I don't have a problem with this. I do find it a little bit weird, but that's honestly besides the point. 3 out of the 4 of us decided that we're going to choose a regular option in the menu and that we were not going to get a lobster. But girl number 4, we'll call her Bella for the sake of the story, decided to go up and choose a lobster. And we all went with her because we wanted to have a look at them as well. There were 3 large tanks with about 10 lobsters in each one, and they were all huge, with a blackish brown color to all of them. In the far corner of one of the tanks, there was a tiny one with blue markings on his back, and he was absolutely adorable. I told all my friends how cute I thought he was, and I even gave him a name. The other girls just looked nonchalant and just kind of rolled their eyes at me, which already began to rub me the wrong way. But yeah, I get it's a lobster, but have a bit of bloody whimsy once in your life, right? But either way, I brushed it off because I am the youngest in my group. So I just assumed that it was a signal that I was being immature and to stop fawning over a lobster. We all went back to our table and left Bella waiting to pick her lobster. And as my final joke, laced with seriousness, I patted her on the shoulder and said, "Please don't pick Mr. Blue." And when I said that, she laughed. Fast forward, and when our food comes out, I know that her lobster looks tiny, but because it's cooked, I can't really tell if it is Mr. Blue. I help Bella cut it open, and one of the girls starts laughing and says, "Oh, look at you betraying Mr. Blue like that." And then they all started laughing. At this point, I'm still in a good mood, so I smile when I say, "I know it's not Mr. Blue." But all my friends look at me in the eye and they tell me that Bella picked Mr. Blue. And when they said that, my mood plummets, because not only did they take out Mr. Blue, but now I'm made to feel like the butt of the joke that isn't really that funny at all. It just seems so weird to me that they relished in destroying the only lobster I named in the entire tank. Bella tells me to stop being so serious about the whole thing, it's just a lobster, and that it was going to pass away either way. Now I know that, but I'm more upset at the fact that she ate him right in front of me. Not only that, but she also gave pieces to my other friends as well, and they all ate him and made comments saying, I love the taste of Mr. Blue." It's the principle of the situation that she could have humored me and picked 29 out of the 30 lobsters in the tank, but instead chose not to. The fact that they all sat there as I willingly sliced open Mr. Blue seemed really messed up to me. After that, I pretty much sat in silence for the rest of the night. They all went clubbing after the restaurant, but I just decided to go home. Bella asked me if it was because because of the tiny joke we made, and I told her that it's because they had been acting incredibly rude in the restaurant. Then I just turned around and I left. Now this happened about 3 days ago, and the next day I thought it was dumb to continue an argument over a lobster, so I acted as if I wasn't angry, but my friends pointed out that I overreacted by calling them jerks, and that because I left the night early, it only escalated this into an entire argument. So am I overreacting in this situation? Because right now I'm seriously not sure what to do. Honestly, I don't think you're overreacting at all, because it sounds like your friends spitefully picked him just to mess with you, and they were making fun of you and laughing at you at your expense. She very easily could have picked any lobster out of that tank, you know, one of the ones that didn't have a name attached to it, or even some silly identity attached to what you just said, but it seems like your friends went out of their way to specifically pick that just to mess with you specifically. And that is the worst part about it, and that's the show of somebody who is not a good friend in the slightest. Because I think you have it right, it really is the principle of the situation. She could have just left it alone and not been like, oh yeah, I'm eating Mr. Blue, how do you like that? That would be like your girlfriend naming a butterfly on the wall and then you destroying it and being like, oh, it was gonna die eventually anyways. It's like, no, just don't kill the butterfly, like it's really that simple. At that point, it's not a joke that everybody can laugh at, but instead, it's a joke literally at the original poster's expense. And that, in my opinion, is incredibly messed up. So no, you are not overreacting, your friends were massive jerks, and I don't blame you for walking out in the slightest. My awful manager got me fired from my job by stating that I wasn't doing enough to try and complete their impossible task. So I decided to get some revenge by going behind their back and tricking them into spending way more money than they had on their budget. And as a result, my old manager got fired and I got paid a lot of money as a result. And I've honestly never felt better about getting back at somebody in my life. Here's what happened. So this happened in the early 2010s, before the advancement of technology in video editing and content creation. I was hired as a content creator for a university that wanted to leverage YouTube to kickstart their branding campaign. The pay was low in those days, there were not many video creators around, and the process usually took a long time from start to finish, but I was hired on. And on my second day, my manager presented my KPI of 85 3 to 10 minute videos in 52 weeks, which was impossible for a one-man team in those days. This meant I had to do the scripting, producing, casting talents, shooting videos, composing music, and all of the editing. And all of which I had to use my own equipment and software because their cameras and computers were so old. They simply couldn't handle the strain of doing anything in high quality. I tried to let my manager know, but she just smiled encouragingly, telling me to give it a try, assuring me if the videos were good, the quality would not be what she focused on. So hearing this, I agreed to give it a try. Now, my manager treated me well in the first month. However, one day when she found out I was a smoker, her attitude changed overnight. A colleague had actually done a facepalm when I told her about it, and she let me know that the manager hated smokers and often advocated to get them fired. She started nitpicking me on everything, from smelling like cigarette smoke after my breaks, coming in 5 to 10 minutes late despite doing more than 4 hours of overtime daily, not being easily contacted during my lunch break, and honestly, the list goes on. But regardless, I soldiered on, because I just wanted to do the work and do it well. 5 months in, I was called into the director's office, where I saw my manager putting on her best displeased but gleeful face, and I felt my stomach drop. The director told me that she was disappointed because she had heard that I was falling behind on my work, and it was already halfway through the year, and I had only completed 30 of the 85 videos. I tried to explain that I've been working my butt off on these videos. I literally worked 6 days out of the week, and this was over 60 hours a day just to do what needed to be done, and that being a one-man army made things impossible. And also, the fact that the videos I put up grossed the highest views ever on their YouTube page. I also recounted how my manager said that she was looking for high-quality videos over quantity. Well, the director dismissed this and stated that the KPI was simply 85 videos in a year, and since it was almost half a year in with my numbers at less than half, she felt it was prudent to cut the cord early. I asked, well, how would I even meet the KPI if they were to fire me? At this point, my manager snorted and she said, we'll find a professional production house to finish your work. Now, the director had given her an odd look, but nodded in her support nonetheless, telling me, you don't need to worry, the manager will get the job done. And it was at that moment that a light bulb went off in my head. Seeing as I was the content professional in the office, one of my jobs was to keep a database of production houses to use in the event that we needed to do a shoot that required more resources, and I was sure that they would be using the production houses in my database, as my manager had no contacts in the production industry. So I changed the contact numbers and messed up all the emails on all of the entries except for one. The one I didn't mess up was where I had a friend friend working as a junior director. I gave him a call and I told him my plan. And sure enough, within 2 days, they were called to come in to pitch. I told him that I had a plan that was a win-win for both of us. It would instantly help him and put him on the fast track to a director position by bringing in that much more business to his production house. And it would also benefit me financially. I would teach him exactly how to pitch so that he can win over the boss and the director. And in turn, his company would pay me a standard finder's fee of 15%. Well, he instantly agreed and immediately put me on the line with his general manager, who upon realizing that this was to be 6 months of work for a high 6-digit payout, instantly agreed and drew up a contract. As it turns out, after I gave them a metaphorical step-by-step playbook, they were the perfect fit, somehow understanding the needs and style of the university, as well as the sort of themes the university wanted to feature. The director and my former boss were amazed that my friend's production house was so familiar with their content that they signed them up right on the spot. Now, even back then, using a production house was not cheap. Each video that they produced could cost double or even triple my monthly salary, given that they had specialized people for each function, namely a producer, a director of photography, a gaffer, a sound person, a video editor, basically meaning that it wasn't a one-man show. But this also meant that they could complete a video every 2 to 3 days. So yes, they produced 50 videos in a span of 4 months for over 100 months of my salary, and I sat back and collected the healthy 15%, which was about 15 months of my salary. This allowed me to put money aside for a holiday and the rest to further my studies with a respected film school overseas. I thought my plan ended here and I had gotten back at my former bosses, but to my surprise, I received a call from my colleagues while I was away on holiday. And this was the same colleague who had facepalmed when I told her that my manager had found out that I was a smoker. She told me that my former manager had been fired and my director was given a massive blasting by the chancellor of the university. The content creation project which I was hired for was only given a budget equating to a 1.5 years of my salary, and they had exceeded that budget by over 10 times. My former manager was so desperate to ensure that her content creation project could be completed that she had thrown caution to the wind, paying anything to get the job done so that she can show my director that she had completed the project, and had approved the massive spend without getting consent from the director. So that's how I got my friend a super fast promotion to a full director in his production house, and how I got a year of pay after getting unfairly fired from my job. And honestly, I've never been more satisfied about getting back at my old boss in my life. Good for the original poster for putting these people in their place. This is some fantastic revenge, and honestly, this is the kind of stuff you love to see. For starters, they gave him basically an impossible task. The level of work that one-man team would have to do just to reach the 85 videos is honestly boggling. Like, what do you think that maybe you hire on, I don't know, someone to edit the videos while this guy makes them? For him to be expected to do all of that, especially with what sounds like a complicated branding campaign, that in my opinion is so unfair, and he definitely got fired for unfair reasons. But I love the fact that even though he got fired, these people still ended up having to pay him a lot of money. And it truly is an icing on the cake that the manager got fired. Like, that lady absolutely deserved it, because she tried to set this guy up for failure, but in the end, she got exactly what she deserved. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my dad's wife that she's not included in any pre-wedding activities, all because of the one-sided contest that she has with my mom? Because right now, she is very angry with me, and at this point, I'm seriously not sure what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my parents got divorced when my siblings and I were in middle and high school. We're now in our 20s, and dad got married 2 years after the divorce. He met his wife and married her in 6 months because she was planning to move back to her home state, and he didn't want to do the long-distance dating thing. So we didn't really know her when he told us that they had eloped in Vegas. She, however, thought we were all super close, and was really disappointed when our reactions were pretty muted to their news. This started her off being jealous of my mom. She was jealous of the closeness that we had with my mom. Then she was jealous of the fact that we got along so well with our mom's partner, and we are still close to them even to this day, even though mom and him never got married. Dad's wife started showing up all glam to school functions and football games that we were involved in, and she looked like she was attending a wedding or red carpet, and she'd make snarky comments about dressing up to support her kids, all while looking right at my mom. She would throw us these lavish birthday parties and invite both sides of our family and then attempt to dress us in matching outfits. It always made her twitchy when we didn't want to dress like her, and when my twin siblings turned 16 and my sister and my mom had matching necklaces, is, my dad's wife actually went home to change and wore the same color dress as my sister. She talks like my mom is somehow less than her, all because she's not remarried. She gloats that she has a ring on her finger and that she shares the same last name as us. Just all kinds of really petty things. She is someone we tolerate, but we don't like her. And if we could exclude her from our lives without losing our dad, we definitely would. Fast forward and I'm getting married, and so is one of my brothers. My dad's wife has not been invited to any fittings, tastings, viewings, etc. by my fiance and I, or my brother and his fiance. But mom has been invited to stuff on both sides, and my dad's wife was so upset by it. She asked my brother about being invited to something first, and he said no, nothing else, that was it. And she pestered him for a while before moving on to me, and she just broke down over it and said she can't understand not being included in pre-wedding activities. Well, I told her that she's not included because of her one-sided contest with my mom, and that it's so pathetic and that none of us want to deal with that. She said it was such a mean thing to say, and all she's ever tried to do is earn that spot as our mom. But we treat our mom's partner, who isn't even our stepdad, like he's more important than her. And at this point, while she was saying that, she was even crying harder. So honestly, am I the jerk for excluding her? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, it sounds like your stepmom is being really obnoxious about being a mom in your life, and she has actively tried to be like in competition with your real mom. And that's really annoying, and I can see how that would wear on you after so many years. And the fact that she's comparing herself to your mom's partner and being like, well, you like him, why don't you like me? But like, how can she not see that he's probably not super obnoxious, and he doesn't try to be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be your best new dad in the world? Because that would be really annoying to have that from two people, let alone have it from one person who's actively antagonistic towards your mom. So I personally don't think you're the jerk for excluding her from pre-wedding stuff, because the way she's been acting is honestly completely inappropriate. Am I the jerk for telling my former social worker that I do not credit her for the good life that I currently have, because she actively made my life a living nightmare growing up? And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things off, I'm a former foster kid who ended up with an incredible foster family who eventually adopted me when I turned 18 years old because I wanted to create those legal ties with them. I credit them with giving me a good life after 7 years of having an awful one, but I don't credit my former social worker for that success at all. For a bit of context, my mom lost custody of me when I was 5 years old, as well as her older kids when they were 11 and 12 years old. They had a different dad than me, and I'm not sure what happened there, but when we first were taken from our mom, we were placed with a family member who eventually decided that she didn't want us, and we were then placed in the same foster home. But my half-siblings hated me. They were always telling me that I shouldn't have been born, trying to make me cry, and they said my dad was dead, and that they were glad because he was awful, and that I was awful as well, and I shouldn't be alive just like him. And the thing is, I don't even know who my father was, and I don't even know his name. And no, there is no name on my original birth certificate. This all started before we were taken into care, but continued until I was finally separated from them after an incident when I was 6 years old. I was placed in 7 different foster homes before finding my family. My former social worker fought against me and my half-siblings being separated, and even when she lost the ability to keep us together, she insisted on visits between the 3 of us. I told her how they treated me, and I recorded it once with my family's camcorder, and she just didn't care. The visits stopped once my half-siblings aged out of the system, and it was such a relief to no longer have to deal with them in my life. I knew that they hated me, I was terrified of seeing them, and I used to not eat and sleep before those visits. And my parents tried to protect me, but they were ordered to maintain the visits. Even after they ended, my former social worker would tell me I should keep in touch with my half-siblings, and she would tell me that I would thank her one day. Fast forward, and I ran into my former social worker recently, and she approached me and said I was one of her best success cases. But I did not want to hear it, and I told her I don't credit her for that good outcome, that she forced me to endure years of bullying and verbal mistreatment at the hands of my biological siblings, who she knew that hated me and insisted it was in my best interest, when in reality it was the worst thing that she could have done. I told her that I hope she learned from it and does better, but I will never give her credit for how great my life has become. I walked away from her, and then last week, I ran into her again, and she told me I had no reason to be so bitter and hateful towards her, and that I will one day see why she did what she did and understand that she acted in my best interest. She told me to grow up and learn how to see nuance in these situations, but I told her I wouldn't see anything differently, and she responded that I can't keep her as the villain in my story forever. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because at this point, I'm very upset and I just don't know what to do. No, you are not the jerk. Your former social worker that was supposed to help you out is a massive piece of garbage. She knew how your siblings were treating you. You had physical evidence on a family camcorder that literally detailed exactly how they treated you, and she still just didn't even care. She pushed it aside and said, "Oh, you'll thank me one day." And that is such a selfish thing to say. If anything, she only did that because she wanted to see you as some kind of success story, because she's probably had no success in her entire miserable career. So no, of course you're not the jerk. That social worker treated you so poorly, and I think the way you were treated was completely unfair. Am I the jerk for using my husband's salary to try and make a point at his family just so I could stand up for myself and stop their stupid remarks? Because right now, my husband is very upset with me, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that my husband and I are doing okay financially. We make enough to not worry about rent and necessities, and we are saving a decent amount, and we have a good scope for growth in our careers. I make a little more than 1/3 of our combined income, and we're both in our late 30s while also having two 6-year-old boys. Now, I have never liked my husband's family because they have a lot of old-fashioned opinions, and they just don't really approve of me. Although we don't have a lot of contact, so it is okay. My husband's cousin's wedding is this week, and they are getting married in our city. So he offered for his parents, aunt, and uncle to stay with us, with the bride and groom renting their own place. And while it is a bit of a squeeze, it is working. They have been here for 2 days now, and on the first day, I heard them having a whole discussion on how it's so sad that our children won't get to have a proper childhood with a mom at home like my husband and his cousin got. And they said this while they were in the living room and I was in the kitchen, and they knew that I could hear. I was stewing, but I don't really like confrontation, so I didn't say anything. Later, I asked my husband if he could please tell them to shut up with the snide comments about me. He said that's just their opinion, and it's not really hurting me, saying that if I'm really bothered, I should learn to stick up for myself, and that he can't always do it for me. Now, this struck a nerve with me, because it is true that I usually ask him to do small things, like telling the drive-thru person if our order is wrong, because it just makes me feel weird and guilty, but somehow it feels like more his responsibility because it is his family involved here. So today, my father-in-law made one more pointed comment during dinner, so I said that his son makes this amount of money, telling them exactly how much he makes. I also said that we live in a big city with very high rent. We literally cannot live on his salary, so I don't know why you think I should be home all day. Well, after I said that, they got pretty quiet. And now my husband is really angry with me because I put him down in front of his family, who are all much richer than us. And now they're gonna look down on him. So honestly, am I the jerk in this scenario? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. For starters, the fact that your husband didn't want to get involved and defend your good name, or at least tell his family to shut up and mind their own business, that in my opinion is completely unfair. Like seriously, where's his backbone? This guy is literally just letting his family walk all over you. He's not saying anything to defend your good name, and he's just allowing them to say all these nasty things. Like, I don't care who you are. When you find out that family really doesn't like you for one reason or another, like that is going to negatively affect you. But also, this extended family sounds super toxic. Like, why would they care in the slightest about how much money you're making, or that you're not even a stay-at-home mom like they're practically begging you to be? Last I checked, that's like literally none of their business. So you know what? If I was in your shoes and my partner said, "I'm not going to take care of this, it's time to stand up for yourself," then in my opinion, I think the way you did that sends a clear message to everybody. For starters, it sends a message to the extended family that no, we don't make enough money, but also it tells your husband that, hey, if you don't want to take care of it, then I'm just gonna have to do it myself. Because at the end of the day, those comments are completely uncalled for. It is completely over the line, and there is no good excuse for his family to treat you that way. Am I the jerk for kicking my friend out of my wedding after she accused me of stealing multiple times? Because as of right now, I'm not totally sure if I made the right decision. Here's what happened. I'm a 21-year-old female, and I kicked my best friend and roommate out of my bridal party after she accused me of stealing. Things were great until one day when I got a text from her asking about her bridesmaid dress. I chose bridesmaid dresses that I found affordable, considering all my bridesmaids are young and they're either still in or just finished college. I also told all of them that if any of the costs were too much for them, then they need to say something. I didn't want them to not be able to be in my bridal party all due to the cost. So I sent them a group text telling them to each reach out separately when they would be ready to buy the dress, and I would send them the link since everyone had different styles. A few months later, this friend reached out about the dress, and I got a quick text back asking for me to pay the express shipping since it wouldn't be there in time to have alterations if anything didn't fit correctly. Now, I was very surprised by this, since I told them all the date to order it by. Now, I didn't think that this was on me, and my fiance suggested that I tell her that. I kindly sent a text back saying that since I gave everybody a date, that in turn I shouldn't have to pay for this. I will add that shipping was not very expensive, and she was open about having a lot of money to spend. She shopped a lot and always bragged how her parents paid for almost everything. Now, I was hurt that she wouldn't just pay for the shipping, almost as if it wasn't important to her. After this, she sent me a text message asking if I took her shoes that she couldn't find. Now, I was surprised by the text message, and I just told her no. She spent a lot of nights at her boyfriend's house and came home looking for things that she eventually found at his house later on. Once I came back from class early, and I found her digging through my dresser. I asked her what she was doing, and she just left my room without saying anything. And then she sent me a text saying she knew I was the one taking her stuff and that she was gonna call the authorities. And you know what? At this point, I kind of hoped that she would, because then she would realize that I didn't take anything. The next day, I got another text asking for a specific shirt, telling me she was looking through my closet and laundry, but didn't find it, but knew I was hiding it. But I just told her that no, I didn't take it. Later on, she told our other roommate that she found the shirt at her boyfriend's house, but I never got an apology. I sent her a message because she wouldn't agree to a phone call, telling her straight up that I had thought about it and decided it would be best that she wasn't in my wedding, but I hoped that we could still remain friends. She told me that she was so relieved that I told her before her dress arrived and that she would cancel the order. Now, I thought I made the right call, and after her response, she confirmed for me that she wasn't acting like someone who I would want in such a special role. However, one of our mutual friends said that he thought I was being a bit rude and I shouldn't have just kicked her out like that. So honestly, I need to know, am I the jerk for kicking her out of my wedding? Because right now, I'm not sure if I made the right decision. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. For starters, if you're still living with this roommate, you need to lock your doors or at least put some kind of lock on your belongings. Like, who knows how long she's actually been going through your stuff? This could have been going on for like months on end and you're just now finding out about it. Like, if I were you, I would do an inventory of all your belongings and just make sure that you don't have any like personal property that's missing. And I know if I was in your shoes, I would not want to be friends with this lady ever again. She's made some wild accusations and basically even said that she would get the authorities involved, even though you didn't steal anything and she found all of her crap at her boyfriend's place. So yeah, this lady sounds super toxic, and if I was in your shoes, I definitely would never want her in my wedding. My entitled mother freaks out and loses her mind when she finds out she needs to be vaccinated from COVID-19 if she wants to attend my wedding, as she claims I'm trying to politicize my wedding, when in fact I'm just trying to protect some very vulnerable people that would be attending. And now, as a result, she has completely cut contact with me and has ghosted my wedding entirely. Here's what happened. Okay, so this took place a couple of years ago. Long story short, after lots of ups and downs, I met the woman of my dreams and I fell head over heels. All the background that you really need on her family is that she was raised by her mother and her grandmother, the latter of which is in her 70s and suffers from severe CPOD and has only 33% lung functionality due to past health issues, including lung cancer as well. Fast forward through several years of dating and then moving in together, as well as buying our first home together, and we are now planning our wedding. We send out invites to all of the usual family members and friends, and I get a call from my mom, who lives in a different state, who is clearly quite upset. She's furious that on our invites, we explicitly included that all attendees need to be vaccinated for COVID-19, and anyone showing anything even remotely close to symptoms needed to stay home, because the man walking my bride down the aisle and performing part of the ceremony would literally expire if he was ever so unlucky to contract the virus. And by the way, all of this was explicitly told to us by his doctor, who was very nervous about him being in a large group setting for these reasons, and actually pleaded with us to please include this part for his health. I explained the reason to her, but it was all to no avail, at which point she said she was just gonna have to see the photos afterwards on Facebook if you're seriously gonna politicize your own wedding. When she said this, I was dumbfounded, and I tried to explain that it had nothing to do with politics, and it was literally a life and death situation, to which she scoffed and screeched about how selfish we were being. And then she proceeded to rattle off all the various news talking points of the time about how the vaccine was evil, and so was anyone and everyone who endorsed it. And you know what? That was the last time I talked to her 3 months before the wedding in 2022, to which she never RSVP'd and never called again, and she and my stepdad ghosted the wedding entirely. And I'm honestly still blown away by the way that she acted. Yeah, that's one of those situations where it's like, okay, good riddance, I don't need you at my wedding in the slightest. Like, that is so obnoxious that you would be like, oh, you're politicizing politicizing your wedding. It's like, are you serious right now? People have passed away from COVID. How can someone be that selfish where they would try to be like, oh yeah, you're politicizing your wedding, when it's very clear that you're just trying to protect somebody who's a part of the wedding and plays a major role in the function of it. So if this was the straw that broke the camel's back, then honestly, good riddance. Because someone like that clearly just wants to cause problems, and that's not someone I would ever want to deal with on a daily basis. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My little sister is the worst person on planet Earth. She constantly treats me like garbage and is always using me for everything under the sun. And after a lifetime of dealing with her garbage, I am now stuck at an impasse because I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So to start things out, my sister is horrible to me and the rest of my family, and her personality has been remarkably consistent since birth. She's combative, she lies and gaslights, and will manipulate you. She spits in my face constantly, and I am so hurt and tired from a lifetime of this because I don't think this behavior is normal. I'll provide some examples to try and illustrate what I mean. For starters, when she was a child, she was sitting on my dad's lap and she was pinching him, and he told her repeatedly to stop. He told her if she didn't stop, he would drop her. Well, she pinched him again and he dropped her right then and there. She then runs to mommy crying about how dad dropped her to portray herself as a victim, even though she's the one that instigated it. And sure, I know she was young, but again, this is to illustrate the consistency in her behavior. When she was of the age to go to school, she would steal my clothes and she would never return them. In fact, she would destroy them, putting a hole in them or even tearing them up. And worst of all, she would hide the evidence and would always deny it even though everybody knew the truth. She stole my mom's van pre-license and drove it into the garage, causing a lot of damage. And again, repeatedly denied it even though we all knew it was her. She snuck out constantly during high school. She was very into drinking and partying, including spending quality time with people, if you know what I mean. In fact, she did that in my car and let her friends do that in my car as well. She also got into a car accident after taking it for a drive with her friends when it was snowing. And we do share the car, but it was my car. She would say horrible, cruel things to me and drive me to tears many times over the years. She started countless avoidable blowout fights with my mom, all by refusing to be cooperative about easy things. For example, refusing to get up early when asked, or refusing to keep her room clean. About a year ago, I got into a car accident near her apartment, which resulted in my car getting totaled, and she declined to drive me home. And I just cried the entire Uber ride home. Now, I will say in her defense, her cat had a procedure at the vet earlier, and she didn't want to leave the cat, but I was still hurt, because if the roles were reversed, I definitely would have found a way to pick her up after a severe wreck. Also, she would ask me to check on her cat if she was away for a night, and this was a semi-regular thing that she would ask for. But you know what? I would go, even after a long 15-hour workday. When I asked her to check on my cat while I was on vacation, she just simply didn't want to. And in that moment, I just cried because I felt used. She asked for help constantly, but never helps anyone herself. She was recently rude to me during a very stressful period in my life due to work, and I went off on her in text. She showed my parents the text that I sent, but of course failed to tell them why I said those things, thus portraying her as a victim again. Also, as an adult, she is horrible with money. This month, she called me in a panic because she apparently spent all her money on a friend's wedding and could not afford any of her bills. I have been trying to give her financial advice for over a year, and she's just completely ignored me. She asked to borrow $400 and then failed to pay me back when she said that she would. I didn't say anything because I assumed she couldn't afford to pay me back yet, but later I learned that she was partying with her friends over the weekend at an event, and I'm absolutely sure she was spending money while she was there. When I confronted her, she told me she forgot about it, which is just a complete lie. I'm honestly just so tired. Hundreds of similar stories. She just makes me so miserable. I want to cut her off, but she apologizes, and the behavior continues and the pattern repeats. She's never the bad guy in her versions of the stories, and I would feel like a crazy person if my mom and dad didn't validate me. I don't even live in the same state as her anymore, and she still continues to negatively impact me. I'm just so confused by this behavior, and I just wish I had an explanation. I don't like conflict, and I'm not an instigator. I don't start fights with her, and I've always helped her out. I don't know why she is so unkind to me. I'm so envious of siblings who are also friends, because right now I am so distraught, and I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, I completely understand where you're coming from. Having a sibling or some kind of like extended family member in general who treats you like garbage and literally just uses you whenever they need something is very disrespectful and a giant waste of your time. Like, you've gone to bat for her several times in her life. You've been there there for her when she needs help or when she needs money, but she has never done the same for you pretty much ever. She always takes and she never gives back, and that is so unfair. And it really sucks. Like, you would expect them to at least come to bat for you at least once in your life, but I'm convinced that people who act like this are simply never capable of seeing how they can reciprocate and help people out in return. They only take from others and they never give back, and in my opinion, that's the mark of a really bad person. And I personally think that your sister definitely fits the bill. So yeah, I don't blame you for being upset, but also there's gotta be some kind of line in the sand where you finally say enough is enough. And sure, you don't want to cut her off completely because you do love her and it sounds like you want to try and have some kind of like relationship with her, but that absolutely doesn't mean that you should have to let her like walk all over you all the time. Like, in my opinion, some kind of healthy boundary really wouldn't be a bad idea, because the way she's treating you right now is completely inappropriate, and you do not deserve that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for not caring if my adopted sister feels included after she decided to bail on the 5-year anniversary of my dad passing away? Because right now I'm incredibly hurt and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I have a biological brother who's 24 years old and an adopted sister who's 27. She was adopted when I was 1 year old and she was around 4. For most of my life, my sister received all the attention from our parents, and my brother and I were just kind of there. My parents would bend over backwards to make sure she felt like a part of the family, which is great, don't get me wrong, except they didn't bother to make my brother and I feel included. When she was 19 years old, we found her biological family, and they have a great relationship now. But I feel like this completely ruined our own family dynamic. Our dad died 5 years ago, and it seems like she just moved on from our dad to the other dad, and is also slowly moving on from our family to her biological family. Her biological mom's side also seemed to have a problem with us because we are white and my sister is black. So every time we try to be involved in activities, there are always jabs at us, and I think they encourage her to become distant from us. My mom still acts like my sister is the center of the world though. The last 2 Thanksgivings, we had to have family Thanksgiving dinner days before because my sister was going to have Thanksgiving with her biological family. And this was the same for the previous Christmas, where we exchanged gifts on the 20th, and my sister didn't even bring my nephew as he was at his biological grandma's place. My final straw has been a trip that we had planned in honor of my dad. On the 5-year anniversary of his passing, we were going to plant an orchard in a certain African country that my dad worked and lived in for years, and we visited many times. Planting this was something my dad had planned before he passed away, and had planned it all out perfectly, so we would only be executing his plan. We had agreed that the 5-year anniversary felt like the perfect time, except now, my sister's biological sister will be getting married around the same time, so this means that my sister can only join us after the actual anniversary day. My mom says it's okay, we can plant trees a week or 2 later, and she actually said that when we plant the trees doesn't make much of a difference, as we'll still be honoring him, and that my sister will only ever get to attend her sister's wedding once. She says it's a week's worth of work anyways, so it's not like we're going to be done on the actual day. Well, this made me mad, and I have told them that I will be breaking the ground on the actual anniversary day, with or without any of them. She said I was being inconsiderate, and that I should think about how this will make my sister feel like she doesn't matter to the family. My sister has been part of our family the same amount of time that I have been, only she can exclude herself. My brother keeps flip-flopping between coming with me to be there for the anniversary, or waiting for my mom and sister some days later, and I honestly can't blame him. So am I the jerk for insisting that I'm not waiting for anybody? Because this trip is in 2 months, and I refuse to take any chances on missing this date. No, I personally don't think you're the jerk, and I don't blame you for stepping forward and saying, yeah, I'm gonna be honoring my dad whether you're there or not. Like, it really seems like your parents have played favorites with your adopted sister, and they've done everything they can almost to like the extreme, and it's basically ruined yours and everybody else's experience in the family, specifically you and your brother. And you know what, sure, I totally understand that they would want to make sure that your sister feels involved, but this has gone so far that they now neglect pretty much anybody else's needs. It's literally all about your sister whether you like it or not, and that is obnoxious in my opinion. So if I was in your shoes, I would do the exact same thing. I would fly to the African country that you're referring to, and I would break ground on this orchard. It clearly means a lot to you and your family, and it seems like you're the only one taking it seriously. seriously, because this is obviously something that you guys have been looking forward to for a long time. And if they're not going to take it seriously, then honestly, that is their loss and not yours. My parents and siblings are incredibly entitled, forcing me to do things around the house that I definitely should never need to do, while also practically making me the parent and the leader of my household, despite the fact that I'm trying to move out and move on with my life. And right now, I feel like I'm at a crossroads, as I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 23-year-old female, and I'm the oldest out of my parents' kids, and I live with my brother who's 20 years old, my sister who's 16 years old, and my youngest brother who's 10 years old. Now, I've been essentially a caregiver to these kids for as long as I can remember, and when I can't be a caregiver still, it all comes down to the fact that according to them, I'm just being selfish. I have a rocky relationship with my parents. I don't talk to my stepdad, and I resent my mother since apparently it's my job to work around my own work schedule just to keep an eye on the youngest when he's not in school, because apparently my other siblings are just too busy to do that. I want to move on with my life, and I'm saving to leave, but it's taking longer than expected, because honestly, stuff just keeps coming up. For example, maybe I get sick, or I need to get my wisdom teeth removed. The list just goes on and on. My main problem is with my brother who's 20 years old, as he has never changed. As a kid, he would scream about, oh, I want this and I want that, and of course he would be given whatever he wants, and now that he's an adult, it's all the same thing. He can't keep any of his money, and expects me to just cough it up to him, or he's never home, so I'm left to look after his 2 cats. Oh, and he moved out for 6 months, and came back with 2 cats, but he doesn't even look after them. He leaves his keys at home every night, and expects that I'll wake him up and let him in at 2 in the morning every morning, while I have to work from 7 a.m. 6 days a week most of the time. And it seriously bothers me that even my parents don't say anything about his behavior. He expects us to run around him all the time. We're expected to put money on his card for public transportation. We're expected to feed and look after his cats, and he doesn't even clean up after himself. And of course, we gotta walk on eggshells around him, because even if we say one word wrong, it will just start this massive argument. And the last time, a really big and bad one happened. He will sometimes just waltz right into my job, asking me right then and there for free food, which I don't exactly agree with. But then there's my mother. My mother hasn't lifted a finger around the house, and at this point, I just don't even know how long it's been. I do the cleaning and cooking for everyone as soon as I get home from work, and that's at like 5 p.m. Nobody lifts a finger despite my protest, and my parents do work, but only to really contribute towards their own wants and needs, and that mostly comes down to luxuries that they definitely don't need. I honestly don't know. I just feel like they're super entitled, and they definitely take advantage of me. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, that is a horrible situation to be in, because right now you are definitely the parent of that household. Your parents have basically taken a step back. They don't care about what happens to their siblings, and they've placed that responsibility on your shoulders. And it's seriously not fair. You don't deserve to have your entire life put on hold, all because your parents don't want to be parents in your life. Not to mention how your brother's been acting. Like seriously, this guy's an adult, and he's going to learn the hard way that he can't expect everybody else around him to basically pick up the slack. I mean, the guy is coming in at 2 in the morning, and he's expecting you to let him in at the drop of a hat? That doesn't seem fair at all. He is 20 years old. He should be able to have his keys with him at the bare minimum. Like, that really is not a big ask of anybody, and the fact that your parents aren't enforcing this in some kind of way is really obnoxious. It's also really weird to me that you're the only one responsible for your 10-year-old brother. Like, based on what you've described, if you didn't step up and like help out around the house, as well as take care of your family and clean the house all together, not to mention after working, 12 hours a day, then I'm pretty sure nothing would ever get done. So in that regards, I absolutely agree with the original poster. Their family is super entitled, and this is really just not fair, because I think you deserve to have your own life, and you definitely deserve to live around people who are going to take care of you and share the load. So in my opinion, I definitely think it's time to really start looking for somewhere else to live, because what you're going through right now is really unfair, and you do not deserve it in the slightest. Am I the jerk for telling my mom that she is ruining my wedding, as she has practically tried to take over my wedding from the very start? Here's what happened. I'm a 28-year-old female, and I'm dealing with my mom's excessive gift giving of clothes and her intrusive involvement in my wedding planning. Throughout my entire life, she sent me numerous packages of clothing, always unsolicited by the way, and mostly it's stuff not of my style. I've tried multiple times to politely return the items that I don't like, but this hasn't stopped her from sending me more. My fiance recently pointed out how her style is very different from mine, often very childish. Despite returning 80% of the clothes that she sends, she continues to inundate me with so much more. Well, the situation situation escalated with my wedding dress. When we went shopping, she pushed for a matronly dress that I hated and dismissed all of the ones that I liked. I eventually chose a dress that everyone, including her, seemed to agree was the most flattering. However, the next day she insisted it was too low cut and even showed photos of me in it to her friends at my grandmother's funeral to get validation. She claimed that they all agreed with her and suggested that we go shopping again, which I refused. Despite my clear refusal, she booked another dress shopping appointment, which was a humiliating experience. She showed me zoomed in photos of my chest to the staff, who graciously assured her that it was not revealing. However, it didn't stop there. In the car leaving the second dress shop, she said that she was then taking me to shop for rehearsal dinner dresses. I said as politely as possible that I wouldn't be requiring her service for that, to which she matter-of-factly stated that she wanted to be involved in picking it out. After I flew back home, she began sending rehearsal dinner dress options to my house, none of which suited me and were all returned. Each dress was either not my style or the wrong size. Despite my polite returns and clear communication, she persisted in sending more. Recently, I planned a trip back to my parents' place to pick up my wedding dress, which I couldn't bring back earlier due to luggage constraints. A day before my flight, my mom texted me that she had booked an alteration appointment for my dress, claiming it needed to fit perfectly and be less revealing. She also mentioned that she had paid $50 for the appointment. After all our previous conflicts over the dress, I was in disbelief that she had not let it go. So I told her that the prior dress shopping experience had been extremely upsetting for me and that I couldn't handle doing that again. Her response was dismissive, stating that both dress shopping experiences had been traumatizing for her too. Now at this, I lost it, and I told her that her constantly bulldozing and manipulating me was ruining my wedding. I know my mom genuinely wants to be involved in my life and in my wedding, but her constant interference and insistence on her taste over mine are making what should be a joyful planning process into a nightmare. So am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I really don't know what to do. No, honestly, you are definitely not the jerk, but you are seriously overdue for some boundaries, man. Like, why did you agree to go on that second trip even in the first place? Like, if she had planned that, I would have been like, no thanks, I'm not going. But you instead went ahead and went for this second dress shopping experience, and I'm just scratching my head why you let that happen. Like, I know if I was in your shoes, I would say, okay, this is definitely a pattern, and she's going to act the same way that she's done before, and it's going to be really awkward and really terrible for me specifically. Like, that would have been my first indication that no, I can't really trust her in this regard, and that would then inform my decision of whether or not to show up for whatever she's planning. She's even gone behind your back and showed your picture to other family members allegedly, or even people that she knows and been like, oh wow, look at my kid's dress. Look how much she's exposing her body. Like, that alone would be the straw that broke my back, where I would say, okay, you're not helping with my wedding planning ever again. And also, I think you need to be way more firm with the way you talk to your mom, because your polite interjections and saying, hey, I really don't want to do this, is clearly just going in one ear and out the other. She doesn't care about what you want or anything like that, and it's literally just causing problems for you in your wedding planning process. So if I was in your shoes, I would stop letting my mom inside of the situation. I would set very clear boundaries and say, hey, this is how it is now. And if she's got a problem with that, then guess what? That's for her to deal with, not you. Because her behavior truly is very intrusive, and I do not blame you for getting upset or annoyed in the slightest. An old entitled jerk causes problems for me and my neighbor after he ran into my neighbor's car, claiming that my neighbor turned wrong and that it was his fault that this accident occurred. Things got so heated that this old entitled jerk even called the police to try and get us in trouble, but instead he got arrested for drinking and driving. And I'm honestly still blown away by this guy's behavior. Here's what happened. So, my apartment complex's entrance is at the junction of a fairly major intersection. My apartment also faces said intersection, and over the few years I've lived here has provided near endless entertainment due to the overwhelming amount of stupidity in the area. I'm serious. A couple of hours sitting on the porch with a beer in hand provides more enjoyment than any Real Housewives TV show. While crashes do occur, including a tanker truck that overturned fully loaded with tar because the driver was making a turn too fast so he didn't catch the light, I really enjoy the arguments. Of all the things I've witnessed at the intersection, this one that happened last month absolutely takes the cake. My neighbor from the other building was on his way home just like any other day. He turned on his blinker, slowed down to turn into the complex, and there was a car right on his tail as he slowed down, and the moment he turned in to drive, the car behind him bumped into him. Now, for clarity's sake, it was the most minor of minor accidents, so they both turn into the complex and park in front of my apartment. The entitled jerk who hit my neighbor gets out of his car screaming. This this guy has a popular red hat on his head with an oxygen bottle in tow. His grievance was that my neighbor had made an illegal turn because he had never seen anyone use that entrance before. Now, my neighbor, not really wanting to deal with this guy, looked at his car, told the guy there really isn't any damage, as there really wasn't, and that he should try to be more careful next time. But it was like something had exploded. This entitled jerk comes unglued, screaming and saying awful things to my neighbor, saying that he has a weapon on him and he feels like his neighbor is trying to hurt him. And that's old person Florida speak for them basically saying that they're gonna try to take you out with zero consequences. So I put on my veteran's hat, and over the years I found that seeing that hat will typically soothe the most severe entitled old jerk bellyaches, and it will slightly bring them back to reality. I also put my own personal protection item on my side in a very visible fashion as a show of force, and I walk out just to check on my neighbor. I ask my neighbor, hey, is everything okay? And before he could respond, the entitled old jerk interjects, absolutely screaming about his grievances. Through the screaming, he says that he's fine. The car is fine, and the only thing that isn't fine is the screaming old entitled jerk. So I look at the guy and say the same thing that my neighbor did, that there is not much damage here, and I curtly told him that he needs to leave. Well, this old entitled jerk then gets in my face, like maybe 3 inches away, and says that we don't get to tell him what to do, and that he is going to call the police and have us arrested. Now, while he was in my face, I could smell alcohol on his breath, so I smiled and I told him, okay, go ahead and do what you've got to do. And you know what? Amazingly, he actually calls the police himself. He says that there was an accident that he was not at fault of, and that he was badly injured. A few minutes later, there was police, ambulance, and fire trucks at the scene of this major accident that clearly required such a response. The police take all the statements, including mine, which I mentioned that I smelled alcohol on his breath because he was 3 inches away from my face trying to intimidate me. The police take this information and do a field sobriety test, which he clearly failed and was arrested on the spot. And I honestly couldn't believe what I had just witnessed. This entitled old jerk causes minor damage while drinking. He refuses to accept responsibility because someone turned in a way that he had never seen before, and therefore, according to him, shouldn't be allowed to do that. He was also given 2 opportunities to leave. He says more awful things, and then literally calls the police on himself and gets arrested for causing an accident while under the influence. So I'm honestly very glad that this old entitled jerk got his social status upgraded to that of a felon. Wow, that guy was completely out of line. Like seriously, he's trying to make these unhinged remarks towards the neighbor and the original poster, while also lying and being like, oh, I feel threatened, I might have to defend myself. And the original poster is 100% right. This old entitled jerk was clearly looking for problems. And thankfully, when he called the police on himself, he found all the problems he could ever want. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I in the wrong for having a grudge against my father and my mother, all because of the way they treated me growing up? Because right now, after looking back on everything, I'm seriously feeling so lost and I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I have a difficult relationship with my father, and this is one that is the main source of my anxiety in my own house. I have a grudge against him for the things he's done in the past, but when I say I have grudges, people tell me I'm a spoiled daughter and I should value him more. So I came here to ask if I am indeed a spoiled daughter, or is it normal to have the feelings that I do? For starters, ever since I was a kid, I was really shy and a very sensitive girl. I had a lot of problems making friends, and I was bullied a lot. My mother always knew something wrong was happening inside school, but everyone told her that she was crazy because I refused to tell the truth. And one of the persons who refused to believe my mother was my father, who supported the idea of me staying in the school even after I confessed that I was being bullied. Now, this problem of making friends basically followed me from my childhood into my teenage years. When I felt really low and I needed to talk, I only had my father to talk to, but his only advice would be that I was too sensitive and that friends don't exist, and I only go to school to study and not to make friends. It was cruel because I was an excellent student. I loved my teachers because I had the highest rates, and I always concentrated during class. I just wanted my father to hear me and give me advice and not try to sink me lower. To this day, I have problems opening up emotionally to him because when I express discomfort or something painful that he has done, he just dismisses it and tells me to become an adult. But part of being an adult is expressing if you've done something wrong to me. Ironically enough, at the age of 11, I started to be my father's therapist. Now, for context, my father has a really bad relationship with his in-laws, and he says that if it wasn't for them, there would never be any marital problems. So, with this premise, he decided decided to start telling me who was behind a mask of friendliness on my mother's side of the family and to take me as his ally on his personal crusade. So I would spy on my mother's call with my grandma and say phrases prefabricated by my father when needed to. And I started hearing every day in the car for hours how the family was awful and that we were protecting my mother. At the moment, I was really immature, and I saw everything like a game of spies, saying phrases like, "Oh, are we winning, Dad?" Almost as if we're fighting against bad guys. And yes, I know it's super cringe. Now, from my point of view, yes, her family is absolute garbage, but all his hate against them is a reflection of his behavior, because he also manipulates and lies to my mother. Now, all of this was behind my mother's back, and my father told me that if I told her, it would be my fault if the family broke up. And now, with almost 20 years, I see that the only deep conversation I've ever had with my father were about his marital problems. In fact, at the age of 15, all these feelings of me playing against the bad guys transformed into hate towards my mother and her family. I felt like she was an idiot and that she didn't want to protect us from her toxic family. Also, I was expecting my father to divorce her at any time, and that's the topic he always was talking about when we were alone. And strangely, at home, he would act as if nothing actually happened. But I didn't say anything. I had the mentality that Dad is perfect and I'm just an idiot. And how could I ever begin to doubt him? My family would be destroyed. Well, one day I overheard a conversation between my grandma and my father, and my mother decided to tell me what it was completely. And that broke the halo of perfection with which I have always viewed my father to this day. When my mother and grandmother moved to Latin America, to my country, she suffered all numbers of atrocity by my father and his family. So much so that she had to move to the street while she was pregnant with me. A few months later, I was born while living in a shelter for women, and as my father promised to change, we returned to his home. Now, I have to say that yes, he did change, and everything was better between them, and they even had my little brother, but that doesn't make the revelation of this secret a before and after for my life. The man who seemed to me to be the perfect father and who rightly made me feel like I was an idiot in the end was, in his past, someone who was really an awful person. It was all just a complete lie. Now, I didn't know who I could trust, my father's family or my mother's family. I was in shock, and this was the first and only marital problem I knew from my mother. I kept acting as normal with my father, but I felt so sad and betrayed that one day I just exploded, and I told him in secret what I had heard, and he decided to tell me his version of everything, claiming that my mother was never mistreated or manipulated. And all of this was some awful plan from my grandma to control the family, that she decided to invent that my father didn't want us at home, and that's why we lived in the streets, and that this way my grandmother would keep us away from my father's influence, and that this way she could use us. Meanwhile, his family was perfect and never did anything wrong. So now I was really divided, because obviously this was really biased. After all this garbage on every family dispute, my mother in secret tells me to support her, while my father in secret tells me to support his truth. And I feel in the middle of a crossfire. Some years ago, I was battling a depression, but I didn't know how I had it, and I was always crying and so sad. At the end, I could go to a therapist, but my father always refused to get me help. When I ended up going, he would always say passive-aggressive things. Stuff like, "You tell her all our secrets, I bet." And I'm glad I went there because I proved and discovered what I really wanted to be. I wanted to be a therapist when I grew up. At 17, I was about to enter university, and my father was obsessed with the idea of me becoming a doctor. I mean, it was his childhood dream after all. Now, I didn't do it because I knew he wanted me to do it just to make his own dreams come true, and because I wanted to study psychology. I mean, I was practically his own therapist already, so why not just make money out of it? However, he told me that under no circumstances was he going to ever let me study it. Now, I partly understood this because the only options to study this career were to go to another island in my archipelago so that I could go to a public university or pay for a private university here, and both options were very expensive. In addition, they told me that if I studied what they wanted so much, they would let me live independently in a flat that they had in the city. Now, I was delighted because they were very controlling, meaning that they had a GPS and they would get angry if I don't take their calls instantly, but I was a total idiot. So I accepted this deal because they never gave me the flat. According to my parents, it was because the arrangements were too expensive and they decided to rent it out to get the money back, which is understandable, but according to my father on my mother's back, it was because he didn't see me ready. He literally just told me to get lost. They've been saying for years, "Oh, we'll give you the flat," but I don't even want it anymore. I mean, seriously, what for? Even if I had it, I would just be blackmailed again. Not to mention that I'm really controlled by my father, as I said said before, to the point that he doesn't even want me to get a car license. It's honestly all so messy, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, it really sounds like both your parents are just completely terrible people, and they've been taking advantage of you and manipulating you pretty much your entire life. Like both of them, more so your father, have been using you against each other pretty much their entire marriage, even if it's in more subtle ways from your mom or more obvious awful ways from your dad. So no, I don't think what your dad is saying about you is correct, and I don't think there's anything wrong with you being cautious towards your dad moving forward, because the way he treated you as well as the way your mom has treated you, in my opinion, is completely inappropriate. An entitled customer tries to tell me that I don't know how to do my job, despite the fact that they have no idea what they're talking about, thus leaving me completely baffled at their stupidity. Here's what happened. So I currently work as a dispense tech at a pretty busy pharmacy, and I'm currently in my second year of bachelor's for pharmacy. I've been working at this pharmacy for over a year now, so it's safe to say that I know my way around medicines, especially since it's what I'm studying as well. Anyways, an elderly lady comes in and asks for someone that knows Mandarin so she can get some help deciphering her medications that she wants from her scripts, as this lady does not speak a wink of English. So I come over and I help her out. Now, it's important to note that I do come from a Chinese background and I can't speak Mandarin as it is my first language. However, I have stayed in Australia for long enough that I'm more fluent in English than I am in Mandarin. She hands me 5 scripts, and 3 of those I offered to get filled, as it seemed like the other 2 scripts are new, and she isn't aware the doctor prescribed her new medications. After a lot of back and forth, she decides out of the 2 new ones, she wants atorvastatin. So I bring the medication box over to her according to the script. She puts it through the Google Translate, and the word atorvastatin is written on the box, and it's translated into the same word as atorvastatin written on the script. But there's a slightly different pronunciation in Mandarin. At this point, I'm baffled. I don't know how to explain to her that if you match the letters on the box, it actually corresponds with the same letters as they appear on the script, because literally they are the same medication. The lady says to me, "You're wrong. What you brought me isn't what's written on the script." I say to her, "This medication is the same thing." She says to me, "You must be new here. You don't know what you're talking about because you're making mistakes. Can you bring me someone else to show me the correct medication?" At this point, I pull the pharmacist aside to confirm the medication right in front of her, but even then, she just doesn't believe me. So I just offered her to fill the scripts that she was sure of, and then leave that one for now. And boy, do I wish the story ended here, but it definitely didn't. For context, in Australia, there are basically 2 healthcare cards, one of which is a basic healthcare card, kind of like Medicare, that is offered to all Australian citizens, and the other is a concession card that only certain people can apply for, which subsidizes a majority of your medication cost. So while I'm dispensing her script, I notice her waving her Medicare card around in front of me, demanding me to put this through the system so that she gets a discount. I explained to her that firstly, I already had her card details, and secondly, the card she's waving around isn't a concession card, and therefore you do not get discounted medications. And I kid you not, before I even get to finish the sentence, she cuts me off and says, "You're wrong, this does get me discounts." And again, I'm just baffled at this point, and I even point out that what she's waving is a Medicare card and not a concession card. And I asked her if she has a concession card at all, and I can't even make this up. She said back to me, "This is the only card I own. I don't know what you're asking me right now." Now, I'm genuinely fed up by this point, so if she really believes that the wrong card can offer her a discount, then so be it. A few minutes pass and she gets her medications, and lo and behold, the cashier staff rings, and this lady is asking why she doesn't have discounts on her medications. I let them know that she doesn't have a concession card, and just to be safe, to double check with her for the 5th time. Now, I wasn't there for it, but I like to assume that she just walks out after having to pay full price. Now, I normally don't let work affect my daily life, but honestly, this experience completely ruined my day. Oh man, there is nothing worse than dealing with a customer who seriously has no idea what they're talking about. They're sitting there being like, "Oh yeah, I know how to do your job." Meanwhile, they can't even identify the correct medication on the box or on the script. Like, that really is super obnoxious, and there's no good excuse for that. And this is also compounded by the fact that she was acting super obnoxious the entire time. Like, seriously, for her to be like, "Oh, you're wrong, you don't know what you're talking about." Like, that is just so rude. I'm pretty sure the person training to be a pharmacist probably has a good handle on how to do their job. So honestly, I think you handled this as well as you possibly could, because the way this lady was acting was completely out of line. An entitled sales rep at my job tries to force me to work while I'm on my vacation, claiming that he's gonna get me in trouble if I don't help him out right away, implying that he could cause me to lose my job. But thankfully, karma was on my side, as this guy guy got reprimanded and put in his place in a way that I always wish would happen. And I've honestly never felt better about getting back at somebody in my life. Here's what happened. So this happened about 8 years ago, and at the time I was working for a large company that did all manner of stuff, such as selling cleaning chemicals, pest elimination services, leasing machinery, and a lot of stuff like that. After starting in the customer service team, and boy are there some stories I could share from that time, I made it to the team that handles machine leases and logistics, dealing only with our field sales and service representatives. A lot of our field reps could be entitled jerks at times, and there was a bit of a company culture of praising them as heroes who went out and got us customers, but there was one in particular who we always dreaded dealing with. He would incorrectly fill out leases and then call and scream at us whenever we rejected them. He would demand anything he submitted be put to the front of our work queues, scream at us if we didn't get things done on his timeline, as well as have some of the worst entitled behavior. But unfortunately, since the assistant vice president over the area was a former field rep, he would just ignore our complaints instead of addressing them or even passing them on to the people in charge of the field reps. Fast forward, and 1 year, thanks to a friend, I lucked out and got a pass to San Diego Comic-Con. The day my vacation started, I was sitting in the airport waiting for my flight when my cell phone suddenly rings. I answer it, and it was the entitled rep I was referring to. Now, I was confused as to how I got this phone call because the phone was my personal phone, not a work one, and I had no idea how he got the number, and I barely said hello before he started in on me. He said to me, "I just saw that you rejected a lease that I submitted, and I need you to fix that right now and process it. I promised the customer we would expedite the machine, and if we don't, I will lose this business." I say to him, no, dude, I'm not in the office. I'm on vacation, and this is my personal number. You need to call the office line and someone can help you there. But when I said that, this guy just literally wouldn't take it. He said to me, "I don't have time for that BS, and I don't care that you're on vacation. This is your problem now, and you will fix it right now, or I will report you to the assistant vice president for not doing your job." Well, I responded back by saying, I am literally sitting in an airport, and I'm going to be boarding a flight in less than 20 minutes. I am not going to the office. I am on vacation. You will not call this number ever again. You messing up a lease is not my problem. See you later. Goodbye. I then hung up, and of course, he called me right back. But rolling my eyes, I ignored the call and I blocked his number. A week later, I am back in the office, and as I'm logging in for the day, my supervisor walks up with a grin on her face. Apparently, the entitled representative had called into the office after I blocked him and demanded to speak to my manager. He tried to spin her some BS to make me look bad, but my supervisor knew me well enough to know that he was full of it. With a few questions, she basically got him to admit on a recorded call that he had dug into our employee files to find my personal number and that he had used that to call me, demanding that I do unpaid work to fix his mistake. And apparently, even with the assistant vice president going to bat for the field reps, he couldn't actually defend this when it was brought up to HR and the higher-ups. And while this entitled rep wasn't fired, he was forced to give me a written apology for his behavior, and I'm told he was severely chewed out by his supervisors and was written up, putting him in danger of losing his job if he did anything like that again. And every time he called our department after that, he was always very polite and very respectful to us. And I became a bit of a hero for finally getting that guy off of our backs. Wow, I can't believe that guy didn't get fired. Like seriously, this guy dug through your personal information just to find out your personal information to call you directly. And apparently this is all over a mistake that he made in the first place. Like that's insane to me, and there is no good excuse for that. And I know for a fact that if I was getting ready to go on vacation and this guy called me up barking orders at me and being like, "Oh, you better help me right now or else I'm gonna get you in trouble," like I would not only be very confused about how he got my number, but also incredibly pissed off. Like I don't know about you, but vacation and personal time off at a job is a sacred time. Nobody interrupts that, nobody gets in the way of that, especially somebody from work who's like an entitled jerk all the time. Because here's the thing, if this person was nicer and had a better attitude towards the people at the main office, I'm positive that some kind of solution could have been brought about that would have solved all these problems right then and there. But it's because this guy's such a massive jerk and he's treated so many people so poorly over the years, that in my opinion would be a major reason why nobody would help him out, whether this was an emergency or not. So truly, I'm so glad that karma came back to bite this guy in the rear end, because his behavior was absolutely unacceptable. My entitled sister-in-law lies to the entire family, claiming that my husband and I made her go homeless and that we're the reason she's sleeping in her car. And after a lot of backlash from the extended family, we are are still recovering from this lie, and I'm seriously still upset, and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so 2 years ago, my husband, who we will call Sam, as well as myself, lived with my parents for a year, and this is because we were looking for a house. Meanwhile, Sam's sister, who we will call Lucy, moved to our country for a job. The plan was for her husband, who we will call Tom, as well as her son, to stay in their home country until Lucy found a job. Lucy, Sam, and I hung out a lot, and every time we would ask her how the house hunting's going, and Lucy would say, I'm working 12 hours a day, I don't have time to look, and that right now she's living in Airbnbs. Now, we of course would ask her if she needed help looking, but she would just say, oh no, I'm fine, don't worry about it. Well, over the next few weeks, we helped Lucy download house hunting apps and did take her to open houses, but she made 0 offers. By then, I suspected Lucy was hoping we'd offer to let her stay with us, that is, until she could find a house of her own. But it wasn't my house, and my parents weren't offering. 3 months passed by, and Lucy started saying that she needed to make sure she kept booking this Airbnb on time, or else she would end up sleeping in her car. Now, it was winter, so I said, well, this isn't our house, so I can't let you live here, but if it comes to staying in your car, I bet we could figure something out for a night. But again, she says, oh no, I'm fine. A couple weeks later, Lucy calls Sam to say that she was staying in a hotel. She said that it's much better than living in her car. And then she said, oh, did I mention I've been living in my car? And at this point, he just said, no, this is the first we're hearing about this. Well, Lucy just laughed about the whole thing, so Sam laughed as well and just shrugged it off entirely. Then, 2 more weeks later, Sam got a text from Tom saying, I can't believe you're making your sister live in a car. It's January. You are a human piece of garbage. It turns out that Lucy had gone back to sleeping in her car, and she had told Tom that we refused to let her stay with us in a house that isn't ours, and that we were forcing her to live in her car. And when I heard this, I was livid. Never once had she told us she was going to be homeless. Never once had she actually asked us for help. And now she was bad-mouthing us to Tom, who was bad-mouthing us to the rest of the family. At that point, everything blew up. This is a tight-knit family, so around 10 people got involved. Lots of accusations, yelling, and harsh text messages. Now, I stayed out of it because it is Sam's family and not mine, and I was too furious to even begin to be reasonable. Eventually, Sam and Lucy talked it out, and we re-entered a state of peace. This was 2 years ago, and no one's mentioned it since. But here's where I might be the jerk. A week ago, Lucy, Sam, and I were both laughing about something dumb I said to a friend, and I said to her, man, it's a miracle that he and I are still friends. And then Lucy said, well, at least you didn't make him live in his car. That would really ruin things. Now, she laughed, and I think she did that to try and break the ice on that memory. But in 2 years, she and Tom never apologized for lying about us and for calling Sam a piece of garbage. So I just said, Lucy, you're in your 40s. You could have just gotten a stupid apartment. And now things are right back to being incredibly awkward. So am I the jerk in this situation? Or are we really at fault in the way that Lucy's trying to claim? What should I do? There is no way you're the jerk in this scenario. You offered Lucy so many opportunities to not only find a place to live, but also so many options and opportunities for her to get off her feet and figure her life out. But even then, she still didn't take advantage of any of these opportunities or even begin to do what she needed to do. So for her to start lying about you and your husband and being like, oh man, they made me live on the street, like that is definitely not what happened. If she was going to be homeless or if she was struggling, then she should have taken your help and taken advantage of that. She didn't communicate any of this, but was somehow expecting you to just read her mind and be like, oh yeah, she's homeless. Because I'm willing to bet that you guys would have been more than willing to help her out in her time of need, or at least find some kind of temporary living situation so she's not sleeping out of her stupid car. So no, you are definitely not the jerk, and Lucy is absolutely out of her mind if she's gonna try and paint you two as the bad guys. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled aunt stole well over $300,000 from me when I was 9 years old. Here's what happened. When I was growing up, my parents moved us out of our house so we could move in with my grandmother who had brain cancer. I was probably around 4 years old at the time, and my grandmother needed someone to care for her and didn't want to move out of her own house. For reference, she was an immigrant from El Salvador, and she moved to the US with my great-grandmother and my mother when my mother was 11 years old. She worked incredibly hard and was very proud of everything she managed to accomplish. She bought a house that she absolutely loved and did not want to leave it for absolutely any reason. Because of this, my parents decided to move in with her so that we could help take take care of her. My grandmother had previously had malignant brain tumors that kept reoccurring for years, and this is prior to us moving in with her. She always got them surgically removed and had probably around 4 brain surgeries by the time we moved in with her. My parents both worked full-time and had very successful careers, so they hired an in-home nurse to make sure my grandmother had a caretaker when they weren't home. My grandmother was still very young, so she loved to stay active, and she would walk me to and from school every day, as well as taking me on fun outings. My entire childhood is filled with memories of us together. I was never aware of this at the time, but as I've grown older, my parents have told me that my grandmother wasn't fully herself during the time that we lived with her, and this is all due to her past brain tumors and brain surgeries. My grandmother absolutely loved me as I was her only grandchild at the time that she died, and having me around gave her something to do since she could no longer work. Now, with that bit of information out of the way, I need to introduce my aunt and my uncle. My aunt and uncle are my mom's younger half-siblings, and when I was younger, they were both in their early 30s and didn't have jobs. They both lived with my grandmother rent-free and lived off of all the money that they could get from her. Despite living with her, they both refused to take care of her, such as making sure she got her meds, taking her to her appointments, or just making sure she ate well. My mom was pretty much the only one of her siblings who worked extremely hard and got a lucrative career. She went to Berkeley, became a teacher full-time, then went to graduate school and got a master's degree, all while working full-time. And now she is a city manager. While my mom was doing all this, my aunt and uncle were doing nothing and living with my grandmother rent-free. I mean, they never even worked part-time jobs. All of this is to say that my mom was always super busy and she was very focused on her career and her own family, but she was still the only one of her siblings always willing to take care of my grandmother. After a few years of us living with and taking care of my grandmother, her tumor reoccurred. She was 64 at the time. She saw her surgeon and she was told that he could remove it, but stated that it was a risky operation since she had already had so many surgeries. After her prior surgery a few years before, she had written a will that basically said that if anything happened to her, we should sell her house, and she would leave all the money from the sale to me for a college fund, as well as grad school if I choose to go to it, and then the rest of that would go for living expenses so I wouldn't have to work while I'm in school. Everything else she left to my aunt and my uncle. And it wasn't really much, maybe around $50,000 in belongings. My aunt and uncle weren't aware of this at the time, and she chose not to tell them. She did not want to leave any cash to them because she felt that it would force them to get jobs and become independent. And she also felt that her letting them live with her rent-free for their entire lives, as well as them not being willing to help her when she needed it, didn't warrant any large sum of money from her. Her house was appraised at around $800,000, and she had paid it off fully. She didn't leave much to my mom, except for some sentimental belongings and her entire jewelry collection that was worth a couple thousand. She explained to my mom that she appreciated all of her help, but she thought my mom would rather have my college expenses fully taken care of than receive cash herself, since my mom highly values education, and my parents both had good jobs and didn't really need any money from her anyways. Now, as I stated before, my mom works in city management, and my dad directs and develops casinos, and also owns a small one of his own that he built from the ground up. My mom agreed with her reasoning, and was extremely grateful for her contribution in ensuring I would be able to go to college no matter what. Well, when my aunt found out, she was absolutely furious. She ended up getting my grandmother to sign over complete control of her will to her, and this is literally while she was in the hospital right before her surgery. My grandmother ended up having the surgery, and the tumor ended up getting removed. She came out of the surgery alive, ended up waking up from surgery, but unfortunately still passed away a few days later. My aunt, on the other hand, sold my grandmother's house, and after all the selling fees, she ended up getting around $775,000. The entire sum was supposed to be mine, but instead, she took around $400,000, left $75,000 to my uncle, and gave me $300,000. I'm honestly surprised she even gave me that much, but I'm definitely grateful because that money is going to help me a ton for college this year. My parents probably could have gotten a lawyer to fight it, since she was literally hospitalized when she made the change and then passed away a week later, but they both grew up with nothing and built their careers all on their own, so they don't really care about money. They also knew that she needed it more than we did, and $300,000 should still cover a majority of my college expenses, and they can easily afford to pay for anything that it doesn't cover. I also get free tuition and a monthly allowance from the government, and that's because of my dad's military service, so I should be fine anyways. My parents ended up cutting her off and moving us back into our house right after all of this. ridiculous. Oh, and my aunt also stole all the jewelry that my grandma had left to my mom. Fast forward 8 years later, and my parents completely cut off my aunt and haven't talked to her since all of this went down. But they do know that she moved states, bought a house with the money that she got, and then joined the military. She's married with kids now, I think, and my uncle got a job, and now he has his own house and a kid. I'm 17 years old and starting college this fall, which is why my parents and I have been talking about my college fund and how I got it. I wasn't aware of any of this happening when it actually occurred because I was so young, but my parents recently told me the story with all the messy details, and I was able to piece together most of it from my memories. But regardless, I'm still happy that I at least have the $300,000 because this will be super helpful in my college education. Yeah, that really sucks that your aunt got away with basically stealing all that money from you. The original poster even clarified that the actual amount was probably around $500,000, and that's even crazier in my opinion. Like your aunt stole $500,000 and just ran to another state. That is super unfair, and it honestly really sucks. But in the end, you have your college education taken care of, and that in my opinion will make all of this completely worth it. An entitled Karen and her family tried to get a deposit back for a tattoo that they are clearly not ready for. And despite the fact that I told them that deposits are non-refundable, she still insists on getting her money back. And I'm honestly so annoyed dealing with people like this. Here's what happened. So I have been tattooing professionally for close to 2 years, and this is my first time dealing with this particular situation. While I fully understand why individuals are reluctant to have a newer artist working on them, I have also seen experienced artists mess up or screw people over. I had a young man and his father come into the shop recently. This was my second time speaking with them, and the adult-age son wanted a relatively easy piece on his forearm. It consisted of only lettering, a little line work, and some generic cloud shading. They did not ask for a specific artist, and they put a deposit down with me for an appointment initially set for today. The young man's mother contacted me yesterday, explained that they had an event coming up, and she did not want tattoo plastic wrap present in the event photos, and wished to reschedule everything. And while that is a weird excuse, it's also not my problem. I attempt to reschedule him twice before speaking with the mother again today. The mother began by saying, "It says right on the appointment card that these deposits are non-refundable, but I just thought I would ask." She then went on to state that individuals online said go in and ask for the owner, so her husband and son were supposed to ask for the owner, but instead they got whoever just threw me up there. Now for reference, the owner was not even there either time they came in, and the owner was not mentioned at all. She kept stating that she was aware that I was new and wanted someone more experienced like the owner doing her adult-age son's first piece, since according to her it was bigger even though it was a small piece. At one point she even asked me, "Are you still an apprentice or what?" When I informed her that I had been taking care of my own clients for well over a year now, she only said, "Yeah, see, I'd like someone with more experience to do it." At this point, I offered to transfer the deposit over to a more experienced artist, which is exactly who she was asking for, and she stated that she'd just like her deposit back. She stated a second time that she was aware that the deposit was non-refundable, but that she thought that she would ask anyways. I told her at this point that the owner retains half the deposit, so I'd have to discuss the potential return with him, and she asked in a rather rude tone, "Okay, should I expect to hear back from you tonight then? Or should I be contacting him myself?" And I'm honestly so sick of entitled jerks who act like this. Yeah, that lady was super rude, and she was clearly like, "Oh, I just thought I would ask for the deposit back." But really what she's actually saying is, "Hey, give me my money back." But I am right there with the original poster. This is not only not your problem, but this is also a situation where it's like, okay, too bad. If you made the deposit and still refuse to make like any attempt to reschedule with someone else, then that's on you. That is literally not on anybody else except for you. So good for you for handling this in the way that you did, because that situation sounded incredibly frustrating. Am I the jerk for walking out of a makeup party that my parents threw for me after my sister announced that she had a miscarriage? Here's what happened. I'm a 24-year-old female, and I walked out of a congratulatory makeup party that my parents were throwing for me after my sister announced that she had miscarried. So the party name is probably confusing to some people, so let me explain. My whole life, I've been told that the day I was born was the worst day in our family because it was also the day my sister was diagnosed with cancer. This was mentioned many times when I was growing up, and it always made me feel weird. My family hated celebrating my birthday, and they would often ignore my actual birthday and choose a new date to celebrate me. Normally, it was a few weeks after my actual birthday. This was because the day held no happy memories for them. During my 10th birthday party, which was not close to my actual birthday, but another late celebration to make everybody happy, my parents and sister decided to announce that my sister's cancer had returned and she was undergoing more treatment. Right then and there, all the celebrations stopped and I had to send my friends home. When I turned 16 years old, my friends decided to throw me a party to celebrate me on my actual birthday. My best friend's parents helped them organize it, and my sister wasn't invited but decided to show up and start telling everyone she had another cancer scare 3 weeks before. My best friend's parents tried to keep her occupied, but she said she wanted to be there to celebrate me, but all she did was share bad news. When I graduated high school, my sister announced that her engagement had ended, and she cried the whole time, and my family decided to cancel the party they had booked for after because my sister needed comfort. I finally spoke to my parents a few months ago and told them how awful it made me feel to have these things happen, especially the ongoing reminder that the day I was born was one of the worst days of their lives. I asked them if they realized how awful it feels to know that your family can't find any happiness that you were born and that you're reminded of that your entire life. They apologized and said that they felt so bad. They told me that they would throw me a graduation party to celebrate me for my achievements. I also spoke to my sister, but she was less receptive to considering any of my feelings. Despite some reservations, I went because my parents appeared to be trying to do better. But then my sister showed up and announced to everybody that she had a miscarriage. And then, as you can probably guess, the party died as the focus went straight to her. Her husband told me I should make non-family leave because my sister needed family around her. So you know what? I just left. It took people 2 hours to notice, and when they did, they were all asking what in the world I thought I was doing leaving like that. And my sister even cried on the phone to me, claiming that she thought I was above everyone who would support her. She asked how I could be so cold. So right now I'm very frustrated, and I need to know if I'm the jerk, because at this point I seriously don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk, and your sister is an obnoxious brat. I'll just say it straight up. She has ruined every single celebration you've ever had in your life. And trust me, I get it. She had cancer and she was really sick. But clearly that got taken care of, right? Like, does she need to show up to every celebration you ever have and make some kind of grand announcement just to put the focus back on her? Like, that's so obnoxious, and you do not deserve that in the slightest. And anybody, and I mean seriously, anybody defending her actions is completely out of their minds. Because at the end of the day, your sister is proven to be an attention-seeking jerk, with your parents proving that they're always going to put you first. I mean, it took them 2 hours to even notice that you left your own party. They clearly have their priorities completely mixed up, and they obviously don't care about you in the slightest. And that, in my opinion, is completely unfair. Am I the jerk for telling the truth to my stepmom by saying that she is not going to walk me down the aisle because she's not my real mom? Because right now she is very upset, and I now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that my mom passed away when I was in kindergarten, and my dad didn't remarry until I was 22 years old. He didn't date at all while my siblings and I were kids, and his wife is fine. She's not my favorite person, and I find her a little off when it comes to her relationship with me and my siblings, and they all feel the same. She gives the vibe that she expected to be accepted as our motherly figure instead of as our dad's partner and wife. We're very close to dad, and he has never given us the same vibe. He will still hang out with us individually without his wife or each other around, but she definitely gives that vibe. He's weird to me because we are all adults and I'm the baby of the family, so my siblings were even older when she married our dad. And to think that she would fill any kind of mom role in my mind is just completely weird. My dad loves her though, and he's happy. And she is nice enough other than this incident, so we don't really rock the boat. However, this is now a situation where I did start to rock the boat, and I wonder if I'm the jerk in this scenario. So my fiance and I are getting married, and we decided we both wanted to walk down the aisle. She wanted to walk with her parents, so I thought it'd be kind of cool to ask my dad. He said yes, and he got really emotional about it. He said he wished my mom could be here to walk with us as well. And you know what? So do I. Well, my dad's wife later approached me and told me that she would gladly walk me down the aisle instead, and she wanted me to know that I had not needed to ask my dad instead. I asked her what she meant, and she assumed that I wanted her but was afraid to ask. But I told her that wasn't what I wanted at all. Well, she told me that was unexpected, and when she heard I asked my dad, she expected I would want her instead. So I asked her why she was expecting to walk me down the aisle when she was not my mom. She looked so offended when I asked her, and she told me I didn't need to be so tactless about it. I told her I was genuinely asking, and I told her I couldn't understand. She then said that she clearly misunderstood the relationship she has with me and my siblings, and that I can keep my thoughtless questions to myself. Now, my dad was also confused by her reaction as well, because when I told him what happened, he had no idea what was going going on. But now she is incredibly upset, and it's leaving me questioning if I'm the jerk, because right now I seriously don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk for telling the truth or for being completely honest with her. This lady came into your life when you were already an adult. You were 22 years old when she got married to your dad, so for her to act like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be walking you down the aisle as well, right? It's like, dude, you've only been a step-parent for what, 4 years? Like, why on earth would she ever assume that she's some kind of mother figure in your life? She didn't raise you, and she had no influence in your upbringing. So for her to act this way is completely out of left field in my opinion. And I don't blame you for being like, wait a second, why would you walk me down the aisle? So no, I don't think you're the jerk, because her entitled behavior, in my opinion, is completely uncalled for. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.